Thank you.
Everybody from...
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tom O'Dell, and I have the honor of being the mayor of Sammamish. I'd like to welcome our guests from the Issaquah and Lake Washington School Boards this evening for our first joint meeting in quite a while. And I think it's a great idea to get both you guys here at once, and we can have a good amount of coordination here. I am going to announce one change to the agenda. If you look at the blue sheet in front of you, it says we're going to open with public comment. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to have public comment held off until we begin our study session at 7 o'clock. So we invite you to, if you want to hear what that's like, you're welcome to stay. I'm sure you got plenty of experience in that about this. But I'd like to go around, starting on my right, go around the table, and just have people introduce themselves. And Ron, do you want to grab the mic and... We are going to have to pass these back and forth a little bit, so...
I'm Ron Thiele. I'm currently the Associate Superintendent in the Issaquah School District and the incoming Superintendent.
Romero Valderrama, Deputy Mayor Sammamish.
I'm Siri Bleasner, Director from Lake Washington School District.
Let's see when it runs out.
We've got one here, sir.
Perfect. I'm Sarah Nagowski, Communications for the Issaquah School District.
John James, Council Member, City of Sammamish.
We do that every time.
Allison Merriweather, Issaquah School Board.
Is it supposed to come up?
Nancy Witten, City of Sammamish Council.
Marnie Moraldo, Issaquah School Board.
Ann Moore, Issaquah School Board.
Lyman Howard, City of Sammamish, Deputy City Manager.
Nate Elledge, Sammamish Police.
Laura Philpott, City of Sammamish Public Works Director.
Jesse Bond, City of Sammamish Parks and Recreation Director.
Hello, I'm Tracy Pierce, Superintendent, Lake Washington School District.
Ben Yazigi, Sammamish City Manager.
Steve Rasmussen, Superintendent, Issaquah School District, soon to be Superintendent Emeritus.
Jake Cooper, Issaquah School District Chief Financial and Operating Officer. So we were not.
He's one of the most insulting people I know.
Doug Eglinton, from Sammamish, and a member of the Lake Washington School Board.
Don Jaron, Sammamish Council, Mayor Emeritus.
I'm Cameron Grohl with the City of Sammamish Community Development Director.
Tom Vance from City of Sammamish Council.
And I'm Brian Deagle, President of the Issaquah School Board and proud resident of the City of Sammamish.
Thank you. And as I said, my name's Tom O'Dell, and I'm the mayor of Sammamish. We have several topics on our agenda for this evening. We are going to have a firm stop at 7 o'clock this evening, so we will have to move smartly through the agenda as we can. First item for discussion is emergency management shelter options. And Ben, do you have something on this for us, or?
Very brief comment, Mr. Mayor. The council talked about having potentially emergency shelters in the city, and we thought that this would be an appropriate discussion here, that we have great schools here. We don't know what the logistics of using our schools as a shelter in case of emergencies, but we thought this would be an appropriate topic to discuss, as we had few emergencies in the past, and then we recognize that there is some need. We don't know what kind of need and what's the magnitude of that need, but we wanted to have that discussion here. So perhaps we can hear from our school districts, is it possible to use some or part of our schools? And if it does, what logistics do we need to work together to accomplish and complete? And, is there a schedule that we need to follow?
Thank you, Ben. Just as a comment leading into this, I don't know how many of you were here for the Inauguration Day storm, but Sammamish became an island for quite a while we had trees that had to be removed and that kind of thing. And for the first time, at least since I've lived here, we were really on our own. And Sammamish has gotten a lot bigger since that happened. We have basically the potential of, if something major were to happen, of being fundamentally cut off from outside help for quite a while. And we've been looking at self-sufficiency up here, including what do we do if we can't get help in and out. And the idea was, well, perhaps we could look at some of the major facilities that are already in place on the plateau or under consideration. I started down this road by looking at the Planet Community Center as being a possible option for that, and it still might be. The one big thing that's lacking there is feeding capability. So we were looking around, and the idea came up, what about the schools? One big thing there is the fact that you do have significant restroom facilities. You have shower and bathing facilities. And the one thing that I questioned was, how are you really set up for feeding large numbers of people if you had to do it? And we also do know that if the lights went out, there would have to be some sort of standby power arrangement. So I'm going to start off with Issaquah and ask them to, if you can, make some comments about whether you might be capable of doing it, willing to do it, what you would need to make it happen if we were to come to an agreement on that.
Thanks, Tom. We do have an agreement with the American Red Cross, and in the Sammamish area, we have an agreement with them for Skyline High School and Pine Lake Middle School. And in the Renton area, but that doesn't include, we have Renton area and we also have the Issaquah area. But one of the challenges we have, and I'll have Jake Cooper add to this, is what you mentioned, is power. If power goes out to the area, we do not have standby power in the form of generator, that type of thing, to accommodate the heat. We have the facility that's lined up for that type of use for emergencies, but we don't have electricity for heat.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jake can probably add to that.
So as Dr. Rasmussen noted, we do have agreement at 7 of our facilities currently with the American Red Cross for disaster shelter, and the agreement's been in place since 2009. Logistically speaking, it is electricity that is our biggest stumbling block. We've been more than willing to work with staff to determine if we can work together on the logistics to make future disaster relief areas available within the city. We do have one standby generator in the district, and it's for our fueling station down in the valley. So, we'd be willing to even enter into an interlocal agreement for disaster relief when it came to backup fueling as well. And we have a similar type of agreement with the city of Issaquah that we have a quid pro quo. If we're out of fuel or they're out of fuel, then during a disaster emergency preparedness that we share that fueling. So.
Okay. Does this agreement with the American Red Cross include emergency rations capability, or is that a separate subject?
I only have the cover page with me, but I have to delve into the details of the American Red Cross agreement. So.
Okay, so that's a potential second issue.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Tracy, would you care to comment?
Thank you. In Lake Washington, we're very similar to Issaquah in that we have agreement as well with the Red Cross to serve as emergency shelters. I would need to verify which sites specifically, but we are, very willing to enter into a conversation to look at what's possible and what we'd need to potentially do, if anything, to make it a workable site.
Okay, thank you. And you, so the issues for you are the same as for Issaquah, basically power and possibly a food supply of some sort.
Correct. Of course, we have a comprehensive district-wide safety plan where all of our sites have emergency water for students and snack bars and things like that, but not to the scale of being able to accommodate a portion of the community. But as I said, we've got the same similar agreement with American Red Cross and can look into what else is needed.
Okay, great. We've had preliminary, the city council, at least some members of us, have had preliminary discussions with members of our congressional delegation. And this is pre-sequestration and post-sequestration about the possibility of getting some grant money to help with the power situation. This was in the context of using the community center, but I've learned from other people who attend some meetings like the National League of Cities meeting that they've been able to do this in the past. So a light bulb went on in my head saying, hey, this is something we need to look at as a city and as schools, a way to work jointly on this so that in the event of something really bad happening, we're not high and dry. So I guess what I'd like to suggest is that we probably should put together an administrative team to look at the needs and come back to us as a group with recommendations on things. Yes, Nancy.
I lived through the 93 Great Inaugural Day storm, and the schools were actually having, the power lines were down everywhere, and it looked like a war zone. I mean, it was very, very scary. It was like somebody taking pickup sticks and throwing down trees and power poles. Schools were providing overnight care for the kids because they couldn't get them home. And teachers had to stay, and it was huge. So if there is that magnitude of a disaster, the schools will first be devoted to taking care of the kids that they can't get home.
Absolutely.
So anything that you look at as a backup will need to address how much space might be available if there were that kind of a magnitude.
My wife was one of the teachers who was held on campus until all the kids got returned to their parents, so I'm familiar with that. Yes, Ben?
Let me maybe perhaps work with the two superintendents and Superintendent Emeritus, incoming superintendent, and we'll take a look at what's needed, and then we'll put together a little issue paper. It's about 1 page or 2 page, and identify the needs and how do we go about addressing it or something like that, and bring it to both boards and the city council for future consideration. That's okay with everybody?
Can we have a head nod on that?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, you have your hunting license, Ben.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from Stephen Tracy, that perhaps the incoming superintendent should take the lead to get the first draft done.
I believe Brian wants to say something.
I was going to say, I like that idea. I mean, what I would be interested in is from the Issaquah side, how what we have with the Red Cross could dovetail into what we would be trying to accomplish here, which I would imagine in Renton and Issaquah might be similar, so that it works together as a standalone. I also wanted to say I was remiss in the opening remarks of giving apologies from Suzanne Weaver, another Sammamish resident and member of the Issaquah School Board. She's was in Wyoming for college graduation and couldn't miss this meeting, but she wish she could have been here, and so she sends her apologies for missing this meeting.
Completely understood. Having been the parent of a couple of graduating college kids, I know what that's like. It's the highest calling. Okay. If there are no further comments on that subject, I'd like to move on to the issue of the upcoming bond and levy measures. And I understand we have comments from both sides, both Issaquah and Lake Washington on this. Tracy, would you like to lead off on this, please?
You've got the mic closest to you.
Yes, thank you. So in Lake Washington, we are in the process of planning for an upcoming bond and levy measures in February of 2014. So at that time, we are intending to run what's called an EP&O levy, or an Educational Programs and Operations levy, a capital projects levy, which has a capital facility portion to it and a capital technology portion, and then also a bond measure. So I'll start with the bond. We're experiencing growth as a district. Our current enrollment is 25,408, and we are projected to grow by 4,000 students over the next 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, those students, many of them are already in our system. We're enrolling larger classes of incoming kindergartners and first graders in recent years than we are graduating classes of seniors. So we have a need to accommodate growth, and we also have all of our schools currently on a modernization schedule that aligns with the state funding schedule for upgrading schools. So back in 1997, when we were planning for a 1998 bond measure, we put our schools on a 4-phase schedule. We've completed phase 1. We're currently completing phase 2. So we have a number of school modernization projects that were completed this year or are underway. And then our next phase would be what we call phase 3, and that would result in from the funding that we would collect from this upcoming bond measure. So what we're looking at is getting input from the community in terms of scope of the bond, knowing that we need to do some building to accommodate growth in the system, and we have this current modernization schedule. So that's, we're in the input gathering phase, and then all of the input from community goes to our bond and levy committee, who then makes a recommendation to our board of directors. And so they're scheduled to make that recommendation in early June, with the board adopting a resolution for ballot measure language at the end of June. It sounds early. We have a citizens levy committee who's done a lot of work in terms of what's needed to successfully pass a ballot measure. And one of the things we've learned from our neighbors, like Issaquah, is having that ballot measure language finalized earlier, having more time for the Citizens Levy Committee to do their promotional campaign, and more time for the district to do its informational campaign, it will be beneficial. So in addition to the bond, like I said, we're also planning for an EP&O levy that really funds basic education not currently funded by our state, and then a capital projects levy. The capital facility portion funds things like roof replacements, things that the bond can't fund, and then also technology. So all of our technology infrastructure, funding software, training devices in our schools. So that's
Okay.
the short story of our upcoming bond and levy measure.
Thank you. I know that Dr. Pierce was in front of our council very recently with further detail on that, and that we have set up a link between the city's website and the Lake Washington School website that gives you access to all the detail, all the options, everything that's being looked at for it. So anybody who might be watching this at home who missed that, please use the website to access it. There's a lot of good things out there that are planned, but they all take money to do it, and that's why we're having the bond. And Dr. Pierce, I think you said that this was a November election issue, or not?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
February?
that? February 2014,
February
yes.
2014, my mistake. Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Pierce from anyone? Okay. Issaquah.
Yeah, I can give us an update, and I'm going to ask our new superintendent to jump in here because he's heading up the committee, and also my CFO sitting beside me. We are in the throes of a levy, not a campaign yet, but we're identifying the size of the levy package. We will be running a levy in February or April. It hasn't been decided yet. The other thing I might add, and I'll have Ron and Jake give a little more of the detail with that, but we did pass in 2012 for us a substantial bond issue. And we're just in the beginning phases of using that bond money in upgrading all of our schools. So we're like Lake Washington, and we want to work together so that when we do these large levies, bonds, et cetera, that we try and coordinate these so that we can get the message out and publicize it while every other district is running those. So, Ron.
Yes, Ron.
Yeah, I would just add, we have three measures. We don't have a bond, but we do have a maintenance and operation, and we have a capital, as Tracy mentioned, a critical repairs component and a technology component and a transportation. So we may actually be able to wrap up our levy development committee. We have a committee of about 45 staff and community members as early as next Wednesday, or it may roll into another meeting after that. I was interested, Tom, when you mentioned the linking the web information. We've been blessed with a community campaign group, the Volunteers for Issaquah Schools, that the parent group that runs our campaign for us, and so we might be interested in something similar as well to get the information out to our communities.
I'm sure that we could handle that, and seeing as I had a little bit of a role in the last levy exercise, I would be happy to help you with that.
We appreciate it. It's a big endeavor for a community to take on, but it's one that's critical for the operation of the school district.
Absolutely, and I think it's important that the people who are trying to run these campaigns have access to as many portals for information as they possibly can.
Yeah.
If you can't find it on the Issaquah school website, maybe you can find it on ours. Hopefully you can find it on both. Should be the same stuff, folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any comments for?
Well, Tom, I'll just throw in here that both districts are blessed to have communities that understand the importance of education and that support our schools and our communities. When we have at least 70% of our constituents do not have children in school, and we still have the type of turnout and support for our schools, it bodes well for our communities and says a lot for our communities.
Well, speaking for Sammamish, over 30% of our residents are 18 or under. In fact, I think it's 32%. So that's a big deal for us. And from the standpoint of a person who no longer has children in the system, you have to also think about the value of a good school system to the community and more parochially to your own property value situation. Good schools make for good resale values. Jake, you were going to say something?
No, I think between the two superintendents, we're covered.
Okay.
I don't know if I need to hear from the finance guy.
Okay. Yes, Don.
Dr. Pierce, I have a question for you. You mentioned 4,000 new students in the next 8 years. You did open up the new STEM school, and I was really impressed when we got the tour of it and the ribbon cutting. Are you expecting more schools up in Sammamish, and in particular the Lake Washington School District site in the town center?
Thank you. We are very proud of the STEM school, and we're also working to make sure that we've got strong STEM programs in all of our comprehensive high schools. In terms of plans, one of the options on our bond measure that we're seeking input on does include new capacity at the high school level. Specifically, what we are looking at is potentially opening, we've got two what we call choice high schools in addition to our 4 comprehensive high schools. And our choice high schools don't have the same sort of property requirement that a comprehensive high school has. So we need 40 buildable acres.
How many?
40 buildable acres to have a comprehensive high school. So when we ran the 2011 levy that funded the STEM high school, one of the decision points at that point was, do we want to have a 5th comprehensive high school in the district, or do we want to expand our choice school strategy, which we currently had and currently have choice schools that serve students from all over the district at the elementary, middle, and at the high school level. At International Community School, they actually serve 712 and will serve 612 starting next year. So one of our options is to have another kind of international focused choice school that serves high school, and another STEM-focused school that serves high school on either side of the district. So ICS is on the west side of the district right now, and STEM is on the east side of the district. And so we are looking at potentially having another international focused choice school on the east side and a STEM-focused school on the west side. So we have some balance across the district. One site that we do have in the Sammamish area is I'm thinking of the map in my mind. So it's not far from Eastside Catholic?
Yeah, Town
Yeah,
Center
in that area, yes. Okay, so Town Center, I was thinking here.
Right,
But,
it's very close.
Yes, so that's a possibility for us because we do have property in that area.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, well, thank you, Dr. Pierce, for your comments. Okay, the number 3 item on our agenda for this evening is a discussion of the Issaquah School District succession plan for the superintendent. But I think we all have a pretty good picture of that. But,
Very good at planning and even better at executing.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Brian, I think this one's probably yours. as
Yes.
chair of the board.
Thank you. We were fortunate in that Dr. Rasmussen has not only served the district really well, but he also set us up for the day he announced his retirement by having in place Ron as associate superintendent for the last 5 years. And so having an experienced quality leader who could step in, and the board offered Ron the job. He accepted, and in fact, we just approved his contract at our last board meeting. So we are ready to go, which is excellent, because there's, as in Lake Washington, there's a lot of very important initiatives that are going on between new teacher and principal evaluation systems, Common Core standards and assessments. We just talked about bond and levies and the continuing financial challenges, and we as a district are able to continue on and not skip a beat in terms of transitioning from Dr. Rasmussen's tenure to the new era. We call it the Thiele era. So we're really pleased that we've been able to do that, and looking forward to continuing on.
Well, thank you. I think Oh, Councilmember.
Yeah, I understand from Ron that he's busy moving to Sammamish, too, so.
Yeah, that's accurate. My wife and I will be relocating to Sammamish. We have to be vacated out of our current residence June 28th, so yeah, we're excited about the move.
Nice move.
That's
That
right.
means we'll have both superintendents within our city limits.
That's right. There's 110 square miles in the Issaquah School District, and Ron said, I'm going to Sammamish.
Good choice. Well, I think it's a very good thing for both boards to have looked ahead and knowing the day was coming when someone either would move on or might move on, to have a bench with some depth on it. And I think both school boards have done an excellent job from that regard. So the continuity thing was mentioned for both school districts. Issaquah has a few things on its plate, and obviously Lake Washington does too with your upcoming funding issues. So having a national search and then bringing somebody in for a cold start is always a bit of a dicey proposition. And if you have someone who's been there and knows the territory and knows what's going on, I think it's always a better choice, personal opinion. So anyway, congratulations, you guys. So the next thing I want to take a little time to deal with, and that is the issue of underage drinking in Sammamish. And it actually goes beyond drinking. It's impairment from any number of sources. Drinking is the one that gets everybody's attention, but there's drug use issues, there are other issues that we have to deal with as a society and as a community. Sammamish is not immune from these. We're under the same pressures as every other community in the country, our youth are, to go along, follow along, do it because it's neat, whatever. And we are now getting to the time of the year where senioritis has set in, and shall we say, the focus is somewhat shifting a little bit. But it's actually a year-round problem. I don't want to say it's just a spring event and it's just seniors. It's not. It goes down through the high schools, into the junior highs, middle schools, and even down into the grade schools. So we here in Sammamish have had a community effort, which both school districts have been involved in now for the last several weeks, to organize a program to step up and address this. This has been led by some of our community social service people, and also our Chief of Police, Nate Illich. And I would like to have us take several minutes to listen to Nate describe the program and have a general conversation about what we do about this very large issue within our city. So, Ben, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you kick it off to Nate.
Well, thanks, Tom. I think you did a great summary, so for the sake of time, I'm going to turn it over to Chief at this point. So, Chief, maybe 30,000-foot level of the summary of what's the problem, description of the problem, and what has been done till now, and what are the plans going forward, and what help that we can seek from the school districts as we move forward.
Sure.
Thanks, Chief.
You bet. Well, the numbers, you've probably all heard that 40% of the arrests we make in Sammamish for driving under the influence involve people under the age of 21. A good portion of those are under the age of 18. About 50% of those arrests involve drugs in the system, not just alcohol. And so it's truly impaired driving. It's not just drunk driving. My philosophy is that law enforcement is one tool in combating impaired driving, but we're not the end-all, be-all. I think it's very important that we prevent this before it happens. We've been very fortunate. We've talked about we have 30% of our residents, approximately, are under the age of 18. Per capita, we have more kids in this city than any other city in the state of Washington, and we're very, very fortunate we have not had a fatality or very serious injury accident involving an impaired youth. and we want to prevent that. So what we've done is, in my opinion, it's not strictly an enforcement issue. So when we started talking about this early on in the year, Sergeant Sullivan, who works for me, and I discussed forming a coalition of community members from across the board to help us address this problem. And I want to just say, because I think many of you know it as the Youth Impaired Driving Initiative, called YIDI. Sergeant Sullivan is very creative, came up with a better name, so we're calling it the Sammamish IDEA Project, and IDEA is Impaired Driving Education and Action. I want to make sure she gets credit for that. I'm not that creative. So that's what we're calling it now. But I want to just make sure I mention all the different groups that are involved in these meetings that we've had, including the mayor and deputy mayor. And we've had members of Sammamish Police Department, of course, Eastside Fire and Rescue, Issaquah and Lake Washington School Districts, East Lake and Skyline student body representatives, and they've had excellent input. The students have been really good. State Farm Insurance Center representative, the prosecutor's office. We've had parents there, Youth Eastside Services, Cross Path Counseling, MAD, and Friends of Youth. So it's definitely been a huge effort with a lot of people concerned about the number of people we have driving impaired in the city, number of youth we have driving impaired. So what we've done is we've broken down into smaller groups, and we're looking at how we can attack this and prevent this from happening at the legislative level, the local legislative level, possibly the state level, how we can work with the schools to prevent it from happening, maybe on education, and we're working with our businesses to prevent sales of alcohol to minors as well. That's the high-level effort we have going on right now.
Great job, Chief, and I want to thank our police chief also that recognition of solving any problem, it starts with the acknowledging that you have a problem, and Chief was very proactive in this matter, and then came to my office Monday, say, we have a problem. We need to get the community involved, and we need to start solving it, and he's been extremely proactive on this thing, and thank you for your work, and thank you also for your support, school districts. These are our kids. We have a joint responsibility, so anything you can do to help us will be greatly appreciated going forward.
It's both a health issue and it's a public safety issue.
Right.
And it's a health issue that could wind up being a lifetime health issue for the kids involved. Speaking of the kids, I've been to several of these meetings that the chief referred to, and some of the more valuable participation has been from the kids themselves. They changed our focus from everyone came in thinking high school. That was a predominant thing. The message very quickly came out of our kids that high school, by the time you get there, you've probably missed the boat in terms of being able to influence people. Move it down into the middle schools and even the upper grades in elementary school. Not too soon to start, particularly with education. This is a community problem, and it will take the community to solve it. The schools can't do it by themselves. The police department can't do it by themselves. Eastside Fire can't do it. And the parents can't all do it by themselves. Parents have a major role to play here, yes, but they need help. They need help from everybody. It's a holistic, it's a problem looking for a holistic solution. And I'm very hopeful that out of this effort will come a really good game plan for stepping up and addressing this whole situation. Brian, do you want to say that?
Yes, I do. I'm gonna access Microsoft SkyDrive because these are my notes from our last board meeting. And it's something that actually we've been talking about as a board for the last couple of board meetings. One of our ends, which is the way we manage the district, is through setting expectations for outcomes. And one of our ends is on life management. And we heard from the district results of a healthy youth survey that was shocking. And in terms of survey results around things like binge drinking or how many alcoholic beverages our kids self-reported having, and it was disturbing and yet consistent with what we've seen in Sammamish in terms of the enforcement efforts. And we'd like to do more, because we know that you're doing something, with the task force that you have and the multiple prongs. But as a board, we'd like to see what else we could do to help, really it is a health issue. It's not just about, alcohol per se, but there's about drugs and an overall approach that our kids have towards how they're taking care of themselves. So, Allison had some ideas, and so did Marnie, about what we might be able to do as a district to do even more than just the participation you've had right now. So that's something I'd like to see if we could pursue.
Okay. Romero?
One thing I've had the privilege to see is the Issaquah School District had a very creative campaign about having kids create videos against underage drinking. I got to see that, and they've promoted it very well with the schools. I'd love to see the school districts of Lake Washington do a similar program and also take advantage of the videos that have been shown. And I'd like to see some way that our city can promote it to all the homes so that the parents are aware of those videos that are out there, because they're done by kids, for kids, so they communicate much better the messages of what they see out there. And I commend you on that program, and I would hope that we see more of those type of programs in the future. Thank you.
Agreed.
I just wanted to add to what Romero said. This is an issue that is a personal one for me. And about 30 years ago, I was hit by a drunk driver in West Seattle and nearly killed. I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks. So I know it's a life-changing experience for a family, for a person, and anything we can do to prevent this from happening, I think is great. I know our Sammamish Kiwanis Club is going to be hearing a presentation from the kids that produce some of these videos, and so whatever our club can do to help, and whatever I can do as an individual to help, count me in.
Okay. Nancy?
The DARE program, when my kids were going through school years ago, was very, very popular with parents and families. I know it was terminated because they found it wasn't effective. But it was an education program starting, I think, in 5th grade or something. I wondered why it failed, and if there isn't some program, some lessons to be learned from that might be incorporated into thoughts of going forward with using education to help overcome this issue.
Excellent question. There's no point in us doing the same thing over again and making the same mistakes. So I'm hoping that this group that is working on this issue will take a very hard look at that. Nate, do you want to make any comments on the DARE situation and why it was terminated?
My understanding is, probably funding was a major reason. And then there were some that said that DARE would maybe only save one person or a very small amount of people from actually going out and driving impaired or using alcohol or drugs as they got older. If there's some areas in the program that needs to be tweaked, then maybe we need to look at tweaking them and bringing back something similar to that, or some sort of education, alcohol and drug education at maybe younger, 6th grade, 7th grade, or something like that. But, I'm not sure exactly why it failed, Mayor.
Anyone else comments?
Tom, I think a little bit of the education piece, and it's already been touched on, is we really have to tailor the message to the students, and they have better ideas about what will be effective with them. So we really do have to listen to the students and ask them, well, what's effective? And we also have to look at the problem in a broader education focus too, because it isn't just about educating the students. The community needs an education. And when Brian mentioned the conversations we've had around the Healthy Youth Survey, one of the things that's always interesting, and Brian used the word shocking, is a lot of folks, they have a perception, because we have such a beautiful community, that we don't have these problems until they actually see the data. And I know we heard a lot when the news story came out about the 40% statistic, and it got a lot of, it brought a lot of emphasis to the issue. So I think it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. We have to tailor the educational message to the students and to the community, and we have to address the issue of a community value as well, about access that students have to alcohol. Because one of the questions when you ask kids, where you get the alcohol, and so, I think we just have to be honest and have that hard conversation with our community, and listen to our students.
Agree. Dr. Pierce?
Just to add on to what Ron is saying, I think as a district, our approach has been multi-pronged, and I do think it can't be the schools alone, it can't be the police alone, the community alone, parents alone. We all need to be working in concert. And we've focused on education and prevention, and for example, Eastlake's done some of the, with the help of the police, I believe, bringing in cars from wrecks, as part of the education and prevention piece, as one example. They've done a good job of communicating home, especially around prom time, and sort of asking parents, reminding parents about the importance of making sure that their students aren't in homes where there's alcohol being served, and encouraging parents not to provide alcohol and so forth. And then I think the third prong is that accountability prong, and no one wants to see students get into trouble, but it's also a part of the prong of prevention is to make sure that we've got strong consequences in place for students, and that part of that consequence is to get an assessment, which I don't think is a consequence, it's more of a support, in order to, continue on to see what we can do as a school to help and where the family needs to help if there's a larger issue. So, what I sometimes like to talk about as a school, here are some of the things we do have in place in terms of consequences and prevention and education and communication, and then I can guarantee some of the things that we're not doing, and we're not providing alcohol to students, and we're not looking the other way when students are abusing those rules, and we're holding them accountable. So.
Okay, thank you. Further comments from anyone?
I think that I agree with everything has been said. They will let the chief and the sergeant to continue with their good work and coordinate with the school districts, and perhaps then we identify if there's next steps that we need to do, and then we communicate that closely with the both school districts and Ron, and we really need to focus on this. This is a serious problem for our community. And
We absolutely
this
do.
I see that is one of our bigger challenges when I look ahead about 5-6 years. We got to address this issue, and it's going to take everybody's efforts to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, man. From my perspective, I fully support the initiative that's underway by the Chief and Sergeant Sullivan, and I will continue to do what I can beyond attending the meetings. The Sammamish Council very recently had a discussion on supporting this issue, in a sense, through looking at what we might do ourselves. You can regard the idea effort as being sort of the carrot, if you will. The council the other night took a look at what the stick might be as well, from the standpoint of how we deal with people that are repeat offenders and this sort of thing, how we might make life a little more expensive for them in terms of penalties, that kind of thing. And that would also include parents who enable, which is a part of the problem that's showing up in our discussions. If you're conducting your life in such a manner that you become the party house for the neighborhood, then that's part of the problem. If you're continually covering for your kid who gets pulled over and basically lowering up on the issue, then that's also part of the problem. So, but as I said at the outset, this is a community issue. It's not just a school issue, it's not just a police issue, it's a community issue. I'm going to encourage both school boards to support their administrations to keep coming to these meetings and keep Eastside Catholic in the loop as well, because they're part of the situation. And I would also encourage a sharing of resources. If Issaquah develops some great tools, let's share them. If Lake Washington has some good ideas, let's share them. Let's not operate in isolation. We need to work this issue together. So thank you for your comments tonight. It's been very good, I think, to have this kind of discussion. We will come back to it in future meetings. Next on my list of topics is a community center update. This is our new community center, and Mr. City Manager, I'm sure, is ready to talk to us.
Thank you. I think we're going to go visit the community center in 15 minutes after the meeting, so it's already built in operations. And
Good. Looking forward to it.
Jesse is good, but not
Quite, not quite.
This is one of our keystone project. The council has been working on this thing for many years, and the community voted on it. We are partnering with YMCA to build about approximately 60,000 square feet community center. And if you're sitting there, Siri, you can tell David, the Siri's significant other is a good friend of mine. David Klein is the city administrator for the city of Tukwila. So they're trying to expand their community center. So where you're looking at it, that just about the other side of the plaza where the community center is going to be. And it's going to be a part of the civic campus here, City Hall, Library, and Community Center. Without taking more time, I'm going to turn it over to our Parks Director, Jesse Bond, to give a little bit more specifics about this project. Jesse?
Thank you, Ben. We happen to have, surprisingly enough, some fact sheets left over from our ballot. And I'm pleased to report that what we wrote 6 months ago is still accurate in terms of what we intend to build. So I thought I'd just hand these out for reference. As Ben mentioned, we're in design phase right now. Inside your handout is a conceptual design that's actually a little bit outdated. In about 3 weeks, we will be bringing to council our revised schematic design for this facility. So most of the components you see on that plan will remain. They're just moved around a little bit and in a more efficient configuration. I think of significance is the aquatics piece of this facility. We are planning to build about 10,000 square feet of aquatics space. That includes what we call a leisure pool. So that's the pool that has a little bit more of the fun and recreational type activities, and then also a 6-lane lap pool. So that's going to be a big addition to the plateau here. Our budget is about $30 million, $25 million coming from the city, $5 million from the YMCA. And the YMCA will be our operator, 100% operator, so they'll be taking on the responsibility of day-to-day operations and maintenance and repairs and capital replacement. Because the YMCA is the operator, it is a membership facility, which is a little bit different from some of the other public community centers. But for us, it is the right partnership, and it's also the right operating model. Certainly, there will be plenty of opportunities for non-members to participate in community activities as well. So that is kind of the really broad, high-level overview.
Have any questions?
To correct the record, it is not ready yet. It's not built yet.
The target date is?
Well, we will hopefully be breaking ground around this time next year, and it will take about 18 months to build.
One thing that Jesse didn't mention is, in addition to the $5 million the Y is kicking in toward the capital side, they're kicking in another $800,000 to $1 million in startup costs. So they're putting a substantial piece of their own skin into this as well. And I think it's going to be, as was said, a very great addition to the community. I think it'll do a lot to move the town center project in our city forward, because it'll provide, it's the third leg of the civic triad, if you will, to the campus here. And it will, I think, give a lot of people the incentive to move forward with the projects that have been talked about for town center for several years now. It is a unique model. It's a great, I call it a joint venture, going back to my business side, a joint venture between the community and the Y. But it's, in public terms, it's a great example of a public-private partnership. And I think once the word on this model gets out, we'll be seeing a few more cities taking this course as well, if they're looking at doing something like this. Yes, Ben?
One other component that might be interesting, particularly for the Issaquah School District, is that as part of the partnership with YMCA, they are bringing to the table that about 8-acre site right next to the Pine Lake Middle School that they had purchased from you. Yeah. And we are leasing that about $1 a year from them for a 50-year agreement. And intent is to build another recreational type of facilities there. Council hasn't made a decision yet, nor did we have any we didn't get any direction to do any public input process on that. But we'll probably be finalizing that within about next 5 to 6 years. And we will have the community obviously be actively involved in that, and then work with the school district on that piece of property.
We'll go through, despite the city manager lobbying heavily for indoor soccer, we'll be going through a public process to determine the future of this particular piece of property and what kind of facility is established there. Again, it will be a community facility as well. And whether we have extend our operating agreement with the Y to that is still very much up in the air. Currently, it is not part of our operating agreement with the Y. Comments, questions from anyone? Brian?
So one thing I'm curious about is what opportunities there might be for Skyline and East Lake and even Eastside Catholic to use the facility for, say, swim team activities and practice.
We haven't heard this one before.
I think that's a really good opportunity to partner with your school districts and your schools.
Well, I'm going to let our Parks and Recs director handle that one.
Certainly, our friends in the aquatics community were very, very involved in our feasibility process. Involved.
Love community input.
Right.
We know what that looks like.
When we executed our agreement with the YMCA, we identified priorities for the aquatics space, and they're essentially health and safety. So teaching kids to swim is a number one priority. Recreation and wellness is a second priority, and swim team use is number 3. So I wouldn't say the 6-lane lap pool is going to be dedicated for competitive use, but there will be a balanced program developed by the YMCA. We didn't go so far at this point to say exactly what that's going to look like, especially because at that time, all we had was a concept plan on the paper.
Right.
So I think as we get further down the road and we know exactly what we're going to build, we'll start working with the YMCA to develop some usage schedules. I will tell you this is not a competition facility, so it would be primarily for practice use.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But definitely available for practice use, so that's an exciting thing that's not currently here.
One thing I'd like to add, what Jesse said, is we designed the facility for future expansion. So if there's an opportunity to expand the facilities, there's some resources available to do that. If there's a need for that, to do that, that could be the next phase of this project, that we're designing it in a way that it can be done.
And on that note, if you recall the public process we went through to get to this point, we had several meetings with the public as a whole where they came in and actually sat down and designed their ideal community center. What we wound up with was 90,000 square feet and a $70 million capital cost, which made everybody on the council choke. So we had a healthy dose of reality hit and sent the city manager and the consultant back to the woodshed on that one. The idea is that effectively what we're looking at and talking about so far is something that fits our budget. We've established a $30 million capital cost as being the ceiling. If we start running into that ceiling, we'll start figuring out what we take out. Then downstream, knowing that this community will continue to grow, we do have a concept, and that's what I'm going to call it, is a concept. There's nothing more than that right now, so don't start getting your...
Let me make a note here.
Don't start getting your hopes too high, but we have a concept for expansion. In fact, the site does allow for some expansion. So I see Nancy waving her hand.
The costs, it was a real negative from an operating standpoint, cost-wise. And our feeling was that since the school teams are basically school issue oriented, that a partnership would require probably schools looking at how can we finance this, how can we pay for operating costs. I don't think the city, the costs were just humongous for us in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, I guess, and a lot of that is not covered by the swim team fees. So if there were to be a facility, it would have to be a really creatively financed future, and especially on the operating cost side, with everybody coming to the table to look at that. Otherwise, something like the Y site would be by the Pine Lake Middle School. If we had an indoor soccer team, if that turned out to be a real moneymaker, you know, something like that could help subsidize a swimming aquatic facility that otherwise is too expensive to realistically assume one city or something to operate. And I assume the schools, for the same reason, are looking for somebody else to bear the cost, so.
Absolutely.
And I don't think Sammamish taxpayers
Just call
want to do
that a partnership.
Yeah, so,
Don't ask it
but, you know, an indoor soccer team coming in and paying those fees, especially adult teams, boy, you might have something that you could get going to.
Why is everybody looking at me when I talk about the soccer and indoor and
Because it's well-known, Ben.
For a driving range.
Deputy Mayor Valderrama had a hand up.
Yeah, it's actually reiterating the points that Nancy had mentioned, and I think that we should be very clear here in a little bit more stark terms that even draft numbers that showed over $30 million for contingency drew a harsh backlash from our citizens. So they have no appetite for going further. The citizens have made that very clear to us on that. So going to what Nancy was saying, if we're going to be looking at anything, we're going to be looking at the school boards, your levies, to start looking at the competitive pool, because we're hearing loud and clear the message that not 1 cent over or cut the facilities back. So I just want to be very clear on that. I think there are a lot of opportunities. I've seen what you've done in the Issaquah school districts to the high school facilities. So clearly there is room to get money for these sports activities here in Sammamish, and we'd like to work with you creatively. But those are our realities that our citizens make known to us on a daily basis. And even as this election is going forward, I've been already told by several candidates, the first question they're asked is, how did you vote on that community center?
Okay. Anyone else? With respect to going back to the fact that this is a community center first, and it will be operated by the Y, but it will be as the Sammamish Community Center. The intent is to make it available to the community as much as possible. Our residents will have certain financial incentives for signing up for it. There will be other times during the week when it will be available for general use by the public as a whole. If the swim teams have a strong interest in using the facility for practice, this is something that could be a matter of discussion between the city, the Y, and the schools, but would very likely involve some sort of after-hours type of schedule. The nice thing about it is it's inside, and you wouldn't have to leave the plateau to use it, which is what's going on now in a lot of cases.
Or being outside.
Or being outside, yeah.
Which is what Skyline does. They're at an outdoor pool. So
Yeah.
after hours, even early hours?
After or before, yeah.
After, before, yeah. I think that's usually.
That's something that could be grounds for discussion without making any kind of commitment. But if it's not open for general use and it's sitting there, and at least this council member would be interested in seeing what arrangements could be made. Because I know the need is there. I've had several neighbors that have been members of the swim teams up here in the plateau, and they've had to get up very early or go to bed very late to practice. So, any further comments on this before we move on? Okay. What we have is our last agenda item, which is the famous other topics.
We have a short time.
Yeah, we have a short time.
So is there anything else you'd like to bring up? John?
Well, I'd like to end on a positive note, and somebody mentioned partnership, and I think if you looked in the dictionary under successful partnership, you would look under East Lake High School and Skyline High School in terms of the multi-use turf fields that were installed on school district properties. And unfortunately, a graph that we just saw in a room next door here is kids haven't stopped populating Sammamish, and that's only going to increase as the real estate market improves and builders build more houses here. So I would like to plant the seed, since we have both school districts here, is maybe we look at, I think we're maxed out at both those schools, but maybe someday looking at some type of partnership at Inglewood Middle School and Pine Lake Middle Schools. Obviously, Pine Lake, with the property the city now will control next door, would be a good symbiotic relationship, but there's still a need, and I think the partnership is a way to stretch those dollars, so.
Thank you, John. I completely agree with you, because the civic dollars are more and more difficult to come by. Civic in the larger sense, the community, the city, the schools. If we can cross-utilize resources, which is what we've been talking about for most of this evening, we're all going to wind up ahead because things we'll be able to do more with less. And I hope we can keep on talking to each other. We've talked about the use of the high schools and maybe the junior highs, whatever, for emergency shelters if need be. We've talked about partnering on the drug and youth DUI issue. We've talked about the possibly, sharing some facilities in the community center. What John brought up is just another opportunity for us to make more efficient use, more effective use of facilities that the people we all report to, the taxpayers, are paying for. And if we can do more cross-utilization of these resources, the public gains. And I hope we continue talking with each other about it. And I know we will. So, any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to thanks to you, Tom, and City of Sammamish for hosting us. In Issaquah, we're a large school district, and we have the benefit of having two excellent municipalities within our borders, Issaquah and the City of Sammamish, and really welcome the opportunity to sit here and talk not just with the city, but also with our esteemed neighbors to the north. And I think it's, continuing to talk and share resources, there's a lot of opportunity to do even more than what we've already done. So looking forward to that.
Great, thank you, Brian. Nancy?
I have one topic. Is there anything the city can be doing to assist the schools in making the schools safer? From a security standpoint?
I think several things that we can all do, and it has to be done together, is that we need to work together on these. We need to continue communicating with one another on what it is, and supporting when we run bond issues and levies, so that continue to communicate that we are interested. Safety is number one. We always talk about education, but safety is first, and then education, because all parents want their kids safe. I want them safe, our boards want them safe, our teachers want to be safe, and the kids they teach safe. So it's just a matter of continue to look at our facilities, look at the resources that we do have, work with our police and fire as we go down the road, and continue communicating with one another how we can continue to be safe facilities, and yet be public facilities that our communities can enjoy and feel good about coming to. Yeah, Marnie.
I'd like to make a comment if I could. Really, when you look at some of the incidents that have happened in the past, what we as a community, and definitely from the city standpoint, is looking at mental health. And when we don't address mental health as an issue, that's where the safety comes in. And it's not just, it's about, drug abuse is a mental health issue, alcohol abuse is a mental health issue, depression is a mental health issue. And when we look through this Healthy Youth survey, it really was frightening at where our kids are at. And so I think as a society, and as a community, we need to look at what are we doing to really gauge where is the mental health of our students, where is the mental health of our community, and what are we going to do to address that?
Okay, this is the second or third time tonight I've heard a reference to this study that you talked about. I don't think the council has seen this study.
Oh.
So
We'd be
if
glad to
you'd be
send it
willing
to
to
you.
share it, I'd
Yeah,
like
I'm
to
sure.
look at it.
It's on our website.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we'll share that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we published.
Ours is published.
We published it. Go ahead, Doug.
I was going to add, on an operational level, we need to make sure that your police department has our latest, schematic drawings of our facilities and things like that, so that when they respond to an incident, they'll have the most up-to-date information. So that's a concrete thing that we could do right away.
Nate?
I know we're close on time here. I just want to say we have met with every school in the city of Sammamish, with every principal, to make sure our plans we're all on the same page for our plans, et cetera. So, and we were met with open arms. We've worked really well with both school districts, and I think we've done what you just said, so.
Yeah, we want what's
And
best.
I don't want to adjourn without saying that Officer Hall is a huge resource. And just saying, in Issaquah, we have 7 different jurisdictions, and when something goes on, I don't ever want something to go on, but I cross my fingers it is in Sammamish or Issaquah, because I can get somebody on the line, Sergeant Sullivan, Officer Hall, someone so responsive. They know the school, they know the community, they know the kids. We had some pretty high-profile things happen at Skyline, and the fact that we had an SRO jointly funded with the city, I think made a tremendous amount of difference. Just talking with Officer Hall, she knew the particular student. I mean, just those relationships helped open back up a school that had to be shut for a day because of it. So absolutely concrete, invaluable service there.
That's a great comment. Tracy?
I just want to echo that we're very appreciative of the school resource officer program. You guys have worked so closely with our district safety committee on safety issues and with our building principals, and you're always so there for us and responsive. And so I think that partnership's working really well, and I can't think of anything else that the city could do to even make it better, but just keep doing what you're doing, so thank you.
Okay. Well, let me toss out an idea. The council has a public safety committee. Schools have a public safety committee. I think in addition to the line communication that goes on between the school administrators and the police and fire, that it might, I'm not trying to duplicate efforts here by any means, but I think it might be useful to have a couple of conversations in that venue as well on this subject. And frankly, I'm hesitant to go too deeply here in public because there's certain aspects of the safety issue that frankly shouldn't be discussed in open meeting like this. But I do want to say one thing, and that is, having attended the briefing on your bond issue, I noted that there are several references in it to improving elements of safety within the buildings itself, and I'm sure Issaquah is doing the same thing. This is something that I think should probably be highlighted to the public as much as possible. But at the same time, I'd be really interested in knowing if there's anything that the council can do with the city administration to help out on this, because frankly, this last incident at the East Coast really hit home. So with that, any further comment? Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for coming and joining us here tonight. It's been our pleasure to host you. I think these meetings are always useful, and it's been a little while since we've done this, but we need to do it again.
I agree. Thank you, Tom.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 14, 2013 meeting of the Sammamish City Council. My name is Tom O'Dell. I have the honor of serving as your mayor. We are having one of our study sessions this evening, which is a little more informal than your typical council meeting. I note for the record that all of our members are present this evening, so we will keep on going here. There is no pledge tonight. We'll forego that. So I'm going to begin by opening the meeting for public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. We have a 3-minute limit per person, or 5 minutes if you are representing the official position of a recognized community organization. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the council this evening?
Come on, Bob.
Well, not him again.
And for the record, would you give us your name and address, please?
Bob Keller, 23708, Northeast 4th Place. I wanted just to say congratulations to the City Council. Oops, sorry. Congratulations. The meeting that you had this evening was really a great meeting. The synergy between the Issaquah School District and Lake Washington School District, I think it was very productive from what I could see. And the subject material that you covered was very relevant to the community. The questions that I've been getting recently really do relate to what you were talking about. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else in the public who would care to address the council?
Lyman, do you have any public comments?
Melanie? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, and we'll move on with the remainder of our agenda. We have four topics this evening. Public Works Standards discussion, a neighborhood traffic management program review for Northeast 25th Way, a discussion of the 244th Avenue Southeast non-motorized project, and a review of the 6-year transportation plan. So, Mr. City Manager, do you care to lead us off, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight is the Public Works Night, so we got a few items here, and, we put some approximate timelines next to them, but hopefully we can maybe get through them sooner. First item is the Public Works Standards. This is a objective that we put on the parks in our city budget. Public Works Department is just starting to work on this topic. We're here tonight to tell you what we have, what challenges that we have with the current standards, and what opportunities that we have also. And in addition to that, we would like to also hear from council that what topics that you want us to cover as we go through the update of our Public Works standards. Tonight, we have our Public Works Director, Laura Philpott, is here. She's going to cover the first item, and then we'll move to the next item. Our city engineer, Jeff Brown, is also here too. So between the two of them, they're going to do tag team to address all those 4 items. So Laura, it's your turn.
And this is item number 1 in our packet.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Laura Philpott, Public Works Director. And I'm going to start out and say a little bit of history on our Public Works standards. Some of you know, some of you may not know. We have what's called the Interim Public Works standards that were adopted in 2000. City was brand new. They served us well, but as the agency has grown, as people grow, as things grow, needs change. And so we've heard for a few years, actually since I started here, 4 or 5 years ago, started hearing murmurs of things that need to be updated or changed in our Public Works standards. So we heard loud and clear during the budget process from the council that should be our 2013 work plan item. And what was the most important thing when we look through that is we want to make sure that we make that our document comply with the directions that we've heard from City Council. We want the standards to reflect what the council actually wants to be built in our community. So we also want to revise the document organization and format, make it a little bit more user-friendly, put it on the internet in a way that people can search it more easily and navigate through the document a little bit better. Roadway sections, specifically local streets, we've heard a lot from the City Council about a desire to narrow those roadway sections, so we'll probably spend the majority of this presentation talking about those. And then typical details, we want to update the typical details in our standards, and we want to make sure that our standards comply with all of our municipal code. As I said, we've grown, but so our codes and our regulations have changed and grown as well, and we want to go back and double check and make sure that we don't have anything in conflict. And we also want to make sure that we're compatible with regional, state, and federal regulations because, again, those have changed a bit since 2000. So our roadway sections, we'll start out with, we have different classifications of roads within the city of Sammamish, pretty typical hierarchy that you'll see in most agencies. The number 1 is our principal arterial, and principal arterial is the road that you would expect to carry the majority of traffic within a city. It's kind of the last road that takes you out to the state system. There's a cross-section here, but probably easier to see is a picture. It's a 5-lane facility. The center lane also can double as a median with landscape strips, sidewalks, bike lanes. The landscape strips and medians serve multiple purposes. One is safety, providing buffers between traffic, multi-directional traffic. They also provide buffer from the pedestrian from the roadway. They also provide traffic calming. Vegetation has an effect on keeping cars slower. It feels more like a neighborhood or community, and drivers tend to respect that. It makes the road feel narrower. And in addition, it helps us with our stormwater management because we have a place where we can for stormwater to go, and it reduces the impervious surface, so it means less water treatment that we need to do. Minor arterials, similar to our principal arterial. Again, these are the roadways that are going to carry the majority of our traffic, kind of the one step down from the principal. This cross-section is showing you a 3-lane section with the center lane having a median. An example of this cross-section is 244th that we recently constructed. It's one of our main north-south minor arterials in the city of Sammamish. We also have collector arterials in our current standards. It's the same cross-section as a minor arterial. The difference is there's some footnotes that allow the median or center turn lane to be reduced or eliminated, as well as the planter strips could be reduced or eliminated depending on the existing right-of-way, available right-of-way. Here is an example up by just south of Windsor Green on 248th, where there is an example of a collector arterial that was built to our current standards. Local roads. Currently, our standard is for a 57-foot right-of-way and a 36-foot paved section with no striping, and then landscape strips and sidewalks. So an example is in Windsor Fields, near the picture I just showed you on 248th. You can see that there's 36 feet of pavement. This particular picture shows there's parking on both sides of the road because of the width. There's no striping. We have the landscape strips and the sidewalk. And you can see that the right-of-way actually it goes from back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk, and it's 57 feet. Another example, just around the corner from the last one in Windsor Fields, this one just shows you what the road looks like when there are no parked vehicles. You can see it's just a wide open pavement. We often hear a lot of complaints from neighborhoods with streets built to this cross-section, and because of the tendency for vehicles to speed when they see that much open road in front of them without any constraints on them. Again, 57 foot of right-of-way, back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk. Yes.
And as a matter of fact, the topic that following to this agenda item, Northeast 25th Way Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, is predicating because of the wide roadway pavement widths. And frankly, we've been spending a lot of time and money trying to fix this roadways to make it more neighborly friendly streets.
Absolutely. There's also some other costs associated
Laura,
with
before you go on, what's the logic behind the 36 feet?
The logic is that there would be parking on both sides of the street, and you would still maintain 20 feet of travelway between parked cars on both sides of the street. In Sammamish, we don't see a huge demand of on-street parking in most of the neighborhoods, and we do find that, wide open streets, people gone during the day, you get a lot of speeding. The other downfall, I think it came up, I heard it from council members early on when we started talking about our pavement management program, is that the wider the pavement, that's more asphalt that the city has to maintain, which is expensive, and as you know, we've been working really hard, the council's been working really hard to make that a priority. And
Nancy?
Are you going to be discussing the parking issue and where you've shrunk it down, and we've had lots of complaints that there aren't enough spaces for cars in dense neighborhoods?
We can absolutely talk about that. I just want to add one more benefit of potentially reducing pavement, or one downfall of having the wider pavement, is the more impervious area we have, the more stormwater that we need to treat. I just wanted to show you, our city manager, Ben, just shared with you that we do spend a lot of time with our neighborhood traffic management program, looking for ways to speed down or slow down speeding vehicles. And Northeast 19th, you may recall, is a recent project that the city completed. And this is a picture showing you that we did have that original 36 feet of pavement, but we've used some curb bump outs and some striping to really designate where that parking should exist, and to provide that friction and narrow the road. And so that's an example of one of the projects where the city has spent money retrofitting, trying to address the problem of the wider roadway. The roadway section of what we believe we've heard, there's some examples around the city, is a 28-foot pavement section, essentially getting rid of the one parking lane. This particular example is in Woods at Beaver Lake. It's a newer subdivision, and this particular example still maintains the 57-foot right-of-way and has 4 feet of right-of-way behind the sidewalk on either side. From a staff perspective, we don't see a huge benefit to the right-of-way that we have on either side of the sidewalk here. It can cause some confusion to property owners about where their property lines are. Well, we can get into that a little bit more in a moment. I also wanted to show, here's an example of a neighborhood, Trossachs, where we do have the 28-foot, but because of some low-impact development, stormwater treatment items, they were allowed to reduce the right-of-way to 50 feet, only leaving a half-foot behind the sidewalk on either side. And this one is a picture you can actually see that there's parking on both sides of the street. And while it does provide a lot of friction and it's tighter, it actually slows the vehicles down, and people tend to navigate just fine through these local streets that are narrower. And we have had a couple neighborhoods with some complaints, but I have to say they've been relatively minor, the complaints we've received, and typically the neighborhoods self-regulate. There's only, we would only intervene and potentially put no parking signs on one side of the road if it became a problem that couldn't be addressed within the neighborhood.
Tom.
Don or Tom?
Yeah, I just wondered, in this particular street, it looks like it'd probably be okay, but I'm wondering what the implications are for fire service? In terms of
It does meet the standards for fire service, and they have the same philosophy as us, that we wouldn't sign it no parking on one side unless it became a problem. But they have, the Eastside Fire and Rescue has worked with Issaquah to actually do a number of reduced roadway sections, and they've worked with us and will continue to work with us.
Laura, I have a question. In Seattle, there are some extreme examples where they have a bump out so that basically they take a local arterial even and make it one lane. You see another car coming, you have to wait before the bump out for the one to go through. And I don't know how that works with the fire department, but it sure is a good way of traffic calming.
Yeah, it is a great tool for traffic calming. We have not implemented anything that extreme here in Sammamish, but it's definitely something that we could consider adding to our testing with our neighborhood traffic management program.
You do that and throw in traffic circles at the intersections like they do in Seattle. Like, it's really interesting.
We did hear a comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Were there more questions?
No, go ahead.
So I did receive some feedback that there's a question about whether or not we should keep the public right-of-way wider. If, the council direction that we've heard is to narrow the roadway section to, and what we've interpreted that as to 28 feet of pavement. But do you keep the right-of-way wider than what the actual improvements are? Some of the pros to that maybe is flexibility, especially on an arterial or a roadway where you don't know what the future growth or traffic needs will be. Having that flexibility can save money in the long run for future, the future us who's trying to do some improvements and deal with roadway capacity. It also could provide additional space for stormwater treatment. So maybe direction we get is keep the roadway, but increase the landscape strip between the sidewalk and the curb. Not necessarily do we put that on the back of sidewalk. Some of the cons might be increased maintenance responsibility or potential liability concerns. Seems like nobody recognizes or acknowledges that the property next to them or adjacent to them is public right-of-way until something bad happens, and then they're sure to tell us where their property line is. And then, some uncertainty for property owners. We've dealt with actually, there's been a couple incidents where people have tried to sell their house or people have tried to work with us and they're confused about where their property line is and where their improvements can and can't be, and it causes some uncertainty for them. I did have a couple pictures here, and hopefully they show up good on your monitor. It's a little bright in here tonight, but the one on the right is 216th, and we actually have 5 feet of public right-of-way behind the sidewalk in this location, and you can see that the bushes are overgrowing the sidewalk. And when that is on public property, we have the ability to go to the private resident and put them on notice and have them cut that back. But when it's public right-of-way, that becomes a responsibility of the agency. And again, that's another one of those areas where they'll be sure to tell us that that's not their bushes, that that's ours, and so we need to trim it. And then the lower picture is a picture where on the back of the edge of pavement to the fence is about 21 feet. And as you can see, once they put that fence up on their property line, that land just becomes forgotten, and it becomes something that we need to maintain. Our maintenance manager was really concerned about me putting these pictures in here because he said, well, you're going to show the council that I'm not doing my job. But, but the truth is, we have so many locations around the city, especially when we hit the growing season. It's really hard to keep up and keep that maintained.
I'm very familiar with the picture on the right. Drive by it every day.
So the message is that what you're trying to tell us, that let's have the roadway widths, the improved sections that is tasteful, reasonable, that fits into neighborhood, that it actually encourages vehicles to follow the speed limit so we don't end up spending hundreds of thousands of dollars fixing them later. But at the same token, that they be very careful on the right-of-way needs. If it's an arterial streets, if it has any potential, even it's local, that can be widened in the future, we'll get as much right-of-way as we need, minimum of 60 foot, I am assuming. But if it's a local street, particularly that end cul-de-sac, why do we need that right-of-way? Is that what pretty much you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
All right.
Councilmember Whitten?
I guess I have a comment. I really like, I'm comfortable, if you have a very dense development at our whatever, and you have lots of small units and lots of people parking, you see it down off of, right off of 228th, where, is it Redmond Ridge or whatever, what do they call that?
Which one?
By the high school.
Red Hawk or?
By the high school and across the street, that whole area where they have apartments and they're parking on the street all the time, and they're competing for spaces, and high school kids come, and use the street spaces, and we get involved in no parking signs, and residents complain. I'm very much in favor of having adequate parking facilities, which means to me that when you have multifamily townhouses, cottage homes, you need to have street parking to accommodate the users, because especially if you're cutting down the parking requirements for the projects. This is my turn. Give me a second.
Okay, I'm just looking to be recognized, that's all.
So I want adequate parking, and when you have single family and you have 2- and 3-car garages, I don't think you need it. But when you have a lot of the things with no parking available, it's really important to, and it makes a quality of life difference to have a parking place. Secondly, I want personally, and I may be in a minority, I may not, I want to reserve for the future the full right-of-way width. I grew up in an apartment in Chicago, very dense, 20-story building, 20-some-story building, and there was no street parking that was ever available readily. And the sense of space you got was from the width of the street and the green belts around them, the median strips around them. And that was the only sense of space you had when everything else was built up around you. So I think it's really important, and you have to look for 100 years from now. Where's our green going to be? Where's our trees going to be? Go to Tokyo and something and see all the trees. It's because they have a streetscape and a width where they have the ability in the future to plant things and to have green and to have a sense of space. When you start shrinking everything down and narrowing widths, as time goes on, people densify and they go up and they go out. The narrower street widths just give you a totally different feel than something that's set back. And you can see that in any large city. And, frankly, in 20, 50 years, we're going to be a very different place. So I want the right-of-ways preserved for the future and for who knows what technology may come along, and it needs places in the streets. So while I'm in favor of shrinking the pavement down, I want to take a close look at providing adequate parking for areas where we're permitting more dense development, and I would like to keep the right-of-way widths that we have now with the reduced pavement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Curley?
I am sure we have all been victim of that heart-stopping moment where you're driving through one of these neighborhood streets and there's street parking and some little kid shoots out between the cars. Oh my God, you just put that brake on just in time. So just to be conscious of the situations that we can create in these neighborhoods when you have street parking on either side, especially heavily residential neighborhood, a lot of young kids playing ball on that sidewalk. Normally they don't play in the backyard, they all sort of play out in front of the house. So just be aware of the situation that you're creating where you have a lot of families, street parking, and kids running back and forth in and out from between those cars. It's a tragedy that none of us ever want to be able to experience, and certainly it's taken a couple of years off my life driving through some streets and having kids run out there. So you've seen it, Laura, we've all experienced it, and just be aware of that situation we can create.
Well, that's why the 28-foot width really doesn't prevent it by any means, but it reduces it because they're weaving and having to go slower if there's actual cars parked.
The cars going through that neighborhood.
Yeah, but
Okay. Councilmember Jarrett?
Well, I agree with Councilmember Curley, and actually I saw an example of it today down in Issaquah. Can't remember the street, it's a block off from Bush Street. It's a single lane, no parking on either side, and then there are parking spaces on the individual properties. But, and indeed, we went down it, and a car came out and was going to come the other direction. He went back in his parking stall so we could go by. So I see us, I hope we think about going to the extreme of having just that, a single lane and a separate pedestrian facility on one side, especially when you have dead-end streets in, well, for example, in environmentally critical areas like Pine Lake Basin, where you're trying to minimize the impervious surface. I think this is something we really should consider.
I know this is a study session, but it's sounding more like a discussion. I'll have to disagree, Don. I think Seattle has one of the worst parking plans I've ever experienced. They want everyone to own one car and take public transportation.
Bikes.
Or bikes, and we're about to lose what meager transit we have. So until that day comes where we have an ability to get rid of one of the two cars, what they're doing is they're forcing people out of their cars, and our people, I think, need the mobility to get to their jobs, because we just learned in our session earlier with the Community and Economic Development, we don't have a lot of jobs in Sammamish yet, so, and a lot of households have two incomes, so anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I don't think I said Seattle, I said Issaquah. I was down in Issaquah.
Even worse.
Yeah,
Oh,
down
I'm
in
sorry.
Issaquah off
Well,
of
we're
Bush Street.
talking about Seattle before that, but,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So out of curiosity, that picture of 216th you're showing there, what is that? Is that a minor arterial or a collector arterial, or what is it?
216?
got to be an arterial of some sort.
It's a collector.
So-
It's a collector,
Collector arterial.
yes. And
And the
that,
minor arterial would be,
244th Avenue Northeast, or Southeast Northeast, the recent roadway that where we built the bridge. That's a minor arterial.
okay.
Which ones are our major arterials? Just 228?
Just 228 to Sahali. Oh, and Issaquah Pine Lake Road.
Okay.
So, again, just a reminder of why we're here and one of the things we're working on. I wanted to also point out the typical details and share an example of another reason why it's important for us to revisit our standards. Back when the standards were developed. This might not even be an exact example, but you can see that curb ramps have come a long way, wheelchair ramps at intersections. You go into some communities that are a lot older than Sammamish, they don't even have curb ramps, and they're going through. There's new federal regulation about what those curb ramps will look like. I'm sure you've all seen the truncated domes, the yellow big squares at the corners. And that's not something that we're proposing to staff. That's something that's being regulated by the American with Disabilities Act. It came from there and is being regulated by the Federal Highway Administration. So that's, again, this is an example of where we want to double check our current details. We want to double check our standards and make sure that we're being compliant and up to date with the current regulations and standards.
Ben, you have a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and I know Laura has been trying to be very tactful and diplomatic that the standards were developed by or recommended by the first Public Works Director of the city of Sammamish.
Who would that
be? These are antiquated, I understand, so the new regulations, we need to comply with that. Not only, I think, despite all this kidding and joking, it probably serve us okay, but we're getting more sophisticated. We need to make some upgrades, and we need to meet with also new guidelines coming from the feds and states here. So if I heard council correctly, directions that I'm hearing, the right-of-way width to keep it consistently throughout the system, that's the area that I need to get some direction from council. Keep it consistently throughout the system, 60-foot minimum right-of-way width. Is that what I'm hearing? That's just the back of that's the right-of-way width, not the roadway.
57 at one point.
57.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing that at least one council member saying that get more of it.
I hear Mr. Jared.
Well, you didn't hear that from me. I heard what Laura was saying is that if we have the right-of-way, we have the responsibility of maintenance of it.
Right.
I would just soon see the right-of-way shrink so that the homeowner has the responsibility of maintenance, and then have setbacks, so you don't have a Chicago where the building goes right up to the sidewalk. You have the setback and the maintenance responsibility at the homeowner's level.
But then if you need to do anything,
And that's what staff is recommending to you that we do. But I want to get a clear consensus from council on this thing. I hear at least one council member wants to do something else.
Well, this council member, to give you my position, I don't want to change the right-of-way at all anywhere until we resolve this issue over vacation and the fact we get 50 cents on the dollar when we vacate, or if conversely, if we have a narrower right-of-way and have to condemn for expansion in the future, we have to pay basically assessed value. So until we resolve that little
Appraised value.
pickle, I don't think we should deviate. Mr. Jared.
Well, I think there's two different cases here. One case is in arterials where perhaps in the future we might have to go from a minor to a major. I certainly agree with you there. On Issaquah Pine Lake Road, I was concerned that they didn't save enough right away because we may have to go to 4 lanes there. But when you're talking about a dead-end residential street in a subdivision, you know that that's not going to be going to 4 lanes, and you want to minimize the impervious surface. Then let's get some flexibility in the standards.
Well, we don't necessarily have to change the right-of-way to minimize impervious surface. What we can do is change the roadway width requirement.
Let the right-of-way
Let the right-of-way be something the homeowner maintains. Most homeowners maintain their right-of-way.
Well, let Laura comment on that.
So I have a couple comments on this discussion. One is, my thought would be that if we kept a wider right-of-way, my recommendation would be that we move the sidewalks back and you put that extra space in the landscape strip. And that would be a pretty large deviation from our current standards. But I also want the council to be very aware of the fact that we do have setback standards in our land use code that regulates where the houses can be, and that's something that can be modified. We also have, where was I going with this? I had a great point. But
It'll come to you.
but we, you're right. We know local streets. We know local streets aren't going to be improved in the future. So there is some differences there. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The wider the right-of-way, you have some conflicting opinion from the public, or at least I think we've heard about the net density versus gross density. And right-of-way is subtracted, so that's just something for the council to be aware of. I'm not saying it's positive or negative, but it's something you should be aware of, that whatever right-of-way there is, it comes off of the land.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, I wish that everybody would maintain the right-of-way as well as we would hope to maintain. There are some homeowners, they do a really great job. They actually go with their landscaping maintenance all the way to the back of the sidewalk. But most of our rights-of-ways are not maintained that well. She shared with you a couple of those pictures. I think that if we reasonably predict that we don't need the right-of-way, then why do we want to increase the city's maintenance responsibility having that additional rights-of-way? Cul-de-sacs are a good example of it. There's a house at the end of the street. Obviously, we did that analysis. That road isn't going anywhere. Why do we want that excess right-of-way?
What? Can I ask a question?
Nancy?
For question on development, we have a comp plan policy that says connectivity is critical to our city. We have whole areas where you have to walk around miles because of cul-de-sacs where they don't go through. Why aren't we looking, in terms of these road standards and in terms of our design for our city, at more connections? I mean, it seems to me, you talk about the cul-de-sac, and that is definitely, it's still happening, but our comp plan policy is not in favor of that. So most of these cul-de-sacs shouldn't be cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
They should be going through. And the one thing that made, my daughter lived in Seattle off of 115th Street, which had been an arterial, and where she lived, they'd done this one-lane thing with a charcuterie, or what do they call this that comes out, the bump out?
Chicanes.
Chicanes, thank you, that make you go to one lane.
Something else.
And what made her, she was in an area between Sandpoint and 35th or something. What made it go, even though she's in the middle of Seattle, is the fact that every street connected. And we don't have that here. And the denseness of it, if you have the street width and the right-of-way width, the feeling of community, the feeling of space, the feeling of green is maintained. But when you shrink that down, and start building apartments as you densify, you look out and you have to put your head up to see the sky and see what the weather's going to be. And just in terms of the character of the city, the right-of-way width is an absolutely crucial piece of how quality of life.
I think, speaking for myself, I think as I said before, the right-of-way issue needs to be put aside until we have resolution of the other issue. I also think that we need to maintain flexibility for the future. We don't know what cul-de-sacs may wind up being opened up in 50 years or so. Where I do have an issue, though, is where we have cul-de-sacs that look like the picture on the lower right with the sidewalks on one side or both sides and very wide streets. I think that we can maintain the right-of-way but still narrow down the amount of pavement in these situations. Mr. Valderrama, you have a comment?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to reiterate the points that Councilmember Gerand had made. There are also maintenance costs associated, and we can differentiate between the arterials. I'm concerned about waiting till we find out about vacating the land, because that's not even within our prerogative. That's a state issue, and God knows when the state's going to finish our budget, much less get to those issues. So I would look at giving some guidance to Laura that we can work on for the next couple of years. And I am concerned about the maintenance. And as the city manager mentioned, and we've been shown some of these pictures, given the maintenance issues and concerns as to who maintains that right away, unless we plant blackberries there to make sure that stays green, that's going to give some trouble. So I think we should give some clarity, and I enjoyed and thought that it was would support Councilmember Jaren's recommendations.
Ramiro, I don't know if we vacated the land on 2/16th, if those blackberry bushes would go away. They'd still be hanging over the sidewalk.
216, baby.
Go back one slide, Laura. There are 2 slides. That's that picture.
The one on the left, the bottom left.
Right.
Councilmember James.
Councilmember Vance, then Councilmember James.
I guess I'm going to have to agree with Councilmember Jaren and Councilmember Valderrama. I think we have a versatile enough road program that if we have certainly some part of the city that's going to be very dense, hopefully not like 20-story apartments, but I think we can be versatile enough to handle that situation. I understand the mayor's concern about the amount of money we get for those kind of vacated land situations, but on the other hand, we still have to maintain that property. And we've seen a few examples of property that don't look so good right now, particularly in front of us as we speak. So I would land on the side of versatility and allowing. I can't see. I know there's some cul-de-sacs in my neighborhood, quite a few of them, and just tried to take those away from those people. We're not going to go through those cul-de-sacs anytime in the next 50 or 60 years at least, unless we invent a new kind of house and a new kind of neighborhood. So,
That's what you're doing.
Again.
Councilmember James wanted to talk.
Mr. James.
Well, I'm sympathetic on the maintenance issue, but I also think that unilaterally reducing our right-of-ways, we're giving away public land in essence. However, when these developments are built, if that builder was able to acquire our right-of-way, even at 50 cents on the dollar, and add one more lot, there might be an economic incentive for the city. Can we sell right-of-way?
I think, Mr. Mayor, if I could have one point of clarification, and maybe
Go ahead.
I didn't clarify this earlier, that these standards are actually for new construction where roads don't exist today. So we're not proposing to go through and change, like if we have currently 60-foot or 57-feet of right-of-way in existing neighborhoods, we're not proposing to make any modifications to those. And we're just proposing that when new plats come forward, that they would adhere to the new standards.
So that answers your question, Mr. Councilmember James. Only degree.
That we could sell them the excess land?
No, that we don't go change the right-of-way width for the existing roadways unless there's a request comes for the right-of-way vacation for us. And then the council will look at
Requested.
What it means is they replot the land to get 16 houses instead of 14 or something, but.
Right.
Mr. Curley.
I'll say that all roads lead to the taxpayer's wallet. Every wide road or wider sidewalks, what was Mike Miller, was it? Mike said to us, why do you guys keep insisting on having us build these huge roads and these gigantic sidewalks? If you let us shrink it down a little bit, it would reflect a cheaper house or a more cost-effective house for the buyer in Sammamish. And what's the latest average cost of a house in Sammamish? $565 or wherever it is right now. It's going up every hour. Jaren's happy. So the road primarily is there to transport the cars. It should be as flexible and feasible as possible. It should accommodate. If the road is going to grow, it's going to grow. If it's not going to grow, it's going to stay where it is. And people love cul-de-sacs. You can charge more for a cul-de-sac. People love living on a cul-de-sac because cars don't go through cul-de-sacs. So as long as the market likes it, the builders were continue to provide it. So let's make sure that these roads serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve without adding additional cost to the homeowner, because they end up paying for it in the end.
Okay, what about?
Wait a second, who is next? Romero?
I just wanted to pile on to what Councilmember Curley had mentioned over there, and also add one of the concerns that I have going forward is looking at the cost of the maintenance of those medians and the plants that are going in, and either cutting them back, trying to look at something more appropriate than the plants that we've had. We were doing better on 228th. We've had problems in the past in the cost, and if there's any way to scale back that to make it look more efficient or look at different plants, would be greatly appreciated. Even on East Lake Sammamish Parkway, I don't know how many times a year that has to be trimmed down on the sides of the roads.
Weeded or whatever.
No.
Goats.
Nancy?
Goats.
Okay, if we're going to, the quality of life issue to me is huge. The flexibility, preserving it for future, I think we're being very short-sighted, but that's not my issue. It belongs to other people. But what about looking at setbacks, increasing setbacks for structures from the right-of-way, if we're going to do that? That way it avoids a maintenance issue for the city, but still preserves flexibility. You just have to go and purchase it in the future if you needed it, but it would be there. And I hope we don't reduce the right-of-way for the major, for any of the arterials. I mean,
Arterials will not be reduced.
but for even, or for connectors.
They won't be. We talk about only and only in local streets. For example, think about the west side of the city where we have those steep slopes area. There are some places that you have to build the cul-de-sacs.
Well, that's a
because
different
that's-
issue, but that's a different
So
issue.
the point is that those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at it. If there's a connectivity issue, we will definitely make sure that that is provided.
What about requiring increased setbacks?
That is certainly your prerogative, but I would suggest that that's the comp plan process, not the public works standards. The
Well,
public works
I would
doesn't
hope
have-
we wouldn't reduce the standards before we took a look at that issue and resolved it, because you would be opening the door, you would be precluding at this construction boom time the extra space if you wanted it. So I could see handling them together.
Council's prerogative, so you guys need to tell me how you wanted me to proceed on this thing. This is the objective you wanted us to accomplish. We need a sense of direction here.
Personally, I prefer to defer this until the comp plan update. Going to Mr. Curley's comment earlier about children running out from between parked vehicles, there are a number of places around the city where the setback is so tight to the sidewalk that some of the larger SUVs actually hang over the sidewalk. And we're not going to tell people what kind of car they can buy.
Not yet.
In this city.
We're working on that.
Or how long. So.
Electric.
There are some issues from that standpoint that need to be taken into account, which gets to Nancy's thing about the setback issue. Let's just kick this can down the road until we get to the comp plan.
Well, where's the council, Mr. Mayor, so you want to check with the council?
What would the setback number be if we were to reduce it from 57 to what?
60 foot to 57 foot, so we're talking about, the right-of-way width. The setback is, I don't know what council member Whitten is advocating.
The right-of-way is...
For local streets, it's currently 57, and we were recommending reducing it to 50.
To 50?
Yes.
So 3.5 foot on each side.
You have that
It
slide,
doesn't
don't you,
look-
Lord?
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is recommend that we increase the setbacks that much.
Can we do that at the same time?
No, we have to go through a comp plan process.
Has to go through the comp
It's two different topics. One is the land use regulations, the other one is your public works standards. So I think what Councilmember Whitten is advocating is that if we're going to reduce the right-of-way width, she wants to increase the setback for the home construction from the back of the sidewalk. Currently, I think is it 25 feet front setback yards, is that correct?
No.
20 feet?
To the garage.
It's
To the
20 feet to the
garages.
garage.
Right.
But it's a lot less for the house.
And then you can do that during your comp plan amendment process, if
But
that's what
I-
you wish to do.
But I'd like to see this change happen, when the right-of-way with shrinking happen when you
Okay, tell me.
resolve the setback issue, because that's, all these new developments would not, it would be too late if you permitted the shrinking down of the right-of-way before you dealt with the setback issue.
Who is requesting this change? What's the genesis of it?
We asked.
guys asked for
we
it,
asked
council.
Damn you.
Come on. I
Who
love
are
you
these-
guys
Who
dearly.
are these numbskulls? Point them out now.
Hey. Mr. Jaron.
To respond to your question, I know I have over the years asked for more flexible road standards discussion, and I think we had some of that tonight. I'm a little concerned about talking about reducing the right-of-way to 50 feet. I envision, and if you want an example, take around Pine Lake. There's, for example, a 5-acre parcel near my house that might eventually someday get developed. Well, there isn't any road that's going to go through the lake. So you're going to have a road that's maybe a block long and, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 houses on it. That road I was on in Issaquah this afternoon was a couple blocks long and had a bunch of duplexes on it. The setback, I agree, if you're not going to have parking on the road, you should have larger setbacks. So you can have John Curley's big SUV parked off without...
His Hummer?
Or Hummer, whatever. So I'm supportive of larger setbacks, but I envision the possibility of going down to, say, a 20-foot right-of-way. You got a 12-foot roadway and a sidewalk on one side or a path on one side. That's all you need.
Not Sammamish.
That's all you need in a one-block road that's not going anywhere.
Councilmember Jaron, with all due respect, I disagree with you on that one, sir. I think that the width that the fire department is going to request as some width, they request 12 to 13 feet, and then you've put any pedestrian facilities, you're looking for significantly more than that. You know, I recognize that there are some places in the older part of Seattle, and they actually carry significantly perhaps more traffic than our own arterial streets. I can give you the Northeast 45th Street as an example, Northeast 55th Street as an example. These are all streets right in the Green Lake area, for example.
Those are arterials. We're talking about dead-end streets, one block long.
I don't
Your
think-
pleasure, council. If that's what you want us to do, we'll do that.
Impervious surface in Pine Lake Basin, for example.
So the flexibility that you're asking for, Don, is on a little street like that, one lane, dead ends down there. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a couple of houses that are for sale right now. You're saying you want that sort of flexibility in there, that it would be only 12 feet wide?
Yeah, with a pedestrian facility.
Storm drainage, it helps storm drainage significantly, no question
Storm
about it.
drainage.
Yeah.
And utilities.
Mr. Vance?
Yeah, as long as we are paying attention to public safety and standards for fire trucks, et cetera, emergency vehicles. I like flexibility, and so I'm inclined to move forward on this. Can we come back and look at that smaller street in the future,
Yes, we
perhaps?
can come back on the smaller street future, what Councilmember
But
Jaron
I think
said.
we can go forward with this, and in those special situations, perhaps we can have some special rules, as long as we pay attention to public safety while we're doing it.
Can we,
So are we divorcing the street width issue from the right-of-way issue?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we have to be the same. I think we need to move forward on this, and
the
we have-
width or the right-of-way? The pavement width or the right-of-way?
On the pavement width.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, I don't either, I guess.
Okay.
But I do have I would like to see the right-of-way reduction linked to
Setback.
an easement.
We can do that in the
setback
future.
increase.
We can do that in the future. So let's just move forward on this, and
Okay, Mr. City Manager, do you think you have your direction
I
at this
think
point?
I do, but I just want to make sure, Mr. Mayor.
can we raise hands or
can't get
something?
the votes,
I can't
but
make
I
a
can
motion.
get
We're
a
not,
head
we
nod here.
cannot vote, guys.
No, but we can nod heads.
Well, nodding heads is not is not a vote
Yeah.
either, but
I think you have your
Yeah. I got it. Thanks, Mr.
So
Mayor.
is there any, we wanted to ask if there was any other area of focus or just the street?
Well, this was a big one. I think that this has been an issue with council, so I don't know there's any other areas. I don't think the council cares so much about the slope of the handicap, right, or the width of that slope in relationship to your super elevation. They don't need to know that. Those are your standards that you have to comply with the federal guidelines and the state guidelines.
I would like to ask for a estimate of the amount of dollars we spend every year trimming vegetation like that on 216th.
That's the road where Mayor drives. We don't necessarily maintain
I know you
that road,
don't.
Mr. Mayor, so.
Trust me, I know you don't. Nancy, we're moving on, so.
Oh, I wanted to ask about using LID techniques for sidewalks or for stormwater.
Well, that's a different subject completely, so.
Well, but that has to do with street design.
Well, not street width.
We will make sure that our standards accommodate low-impact development where it's feasible.
Good.
We will put, I'm hearing loud and clear, we want flexibility.
We've seen in the past some examples in Seattle that were wonderfully done and some that were bad, but, and also,
We did put those standards in the town center plan.
Right, it is
We
there.
have those available on the books.
Yeah, it is. What we heard from council, so in summary, that we will continue to require 60-foot wide right-of-way, but the roadway width that you want to make sure it's flexible, like a 28-foot section that the Public Works Director just showed us, that provides at least a parking on one side of the road, so it doesn't make it too right. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
I know some of you are not happy, but that's what the majority says, so I'm sorry.
nobody, I don't think anybody has a problem with a narrower pavement width.
It's just that the right-of-way width that you want to make sure we
Right.
remain at the 60-foot.
Stay with the right of way.
Okay.
So number 2 on our list is the Northeast 25th.
Here's the good example of, Mr. Mayor, that when you have a build the road is too wide, this is the problem that we're experiencing it. So, Jeff, tell us about this problem, where it is, what it is, what are we doing with it?
Thank you, Ben. Well, I see I've got a font problem.
Spanish Y.
Yes.
Perhaps we should have this topic discussed first before we discuss the standards.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Braun, City Engineer, and I see that I've got a font substitution problem here. So we're going to give an update on our neighborhood traffic management project, or you'll see NTMP used throughout this presentation, on Northeast 25th Way. And the limits of this study are 220th Avenue Northeast on the west to 239th Place Northeast on the east. Here's, I know you can't, oops, I'm sorry. Here's an overview of the corridor.
Where's 228th?
228th is right at the edge of the screen on the left.
Where? I'm sorry.
On the left of your monitor.
Oh, thank you.
And then, let's see, I think this is laser. Well, you're looking at your monitors. 239th Place Northeast is on right at the top left corner of that image. Just clipped right there. So this corridor is about 0.7 of a mile long. It is a local roadway, so it's classified as a local roadway. It's the main access for the northeast segment of the city. It accesses the Plateau Estates neighborhood, the Summer Ridge neighborhood, neighborhoods to the south, as well as a major access from McAuliffe Elementary School. The posted speed limit of the corridor is 25 miles an hour. And one thing that's unique about this corridor, the traffic volumes dramatically decrease as you proceed west. So you may not be able to see it there. And did they have the handout?
Decrease or increase?
Decrease.
As you proceed east.
As you proceed to the west. And so right
To the west? From where?
to the east, I'm sorry. To the east. Okay. Laura's got a plot that shows, just when we get to some more of the details, it doesn't have the volume figures, but just, because I know the photos are going to be quite small.
Not a through road.
But basically, when you enter the corridor from 220th Avenue, the volume is about 4,000, and that's quite high for a local street. We've got collectors that don't have that volume. But it quickly drops off as you get to right here where my mouse is circling. That's 3,500 cars per day. And then just a couple streets down to the east, then it drops 27 to 2,700 cars a day. So it's dropped by over almost 1,000. And then at the next major street, it's down to 1,600, so a drop of another 1,100 vehicles. And then all the way at the east end of the corridor, it's only 800, which is a very low volume. So I just wanted to highlight that basically cars are, as you're heading towards 228th, they're entering the corridor, so the volume keeps going up. And as you're leaving 228th, heading into the neighborhoods, the volume drops off dramatically.
Where's the school?
The school is off to the southeast of the photo, so it's probably down at the bottom of the corner screen here.
And do all these kids
Make the
walk?
right on turn 39th and keep going.
Correct. It's on Northeast 22nd. So this is Northeast 25th. The school's at Northeast 22nd, so it's 3 blocks south of this corridor and about 2 blocks east.
Thank you.
Jeff, you're saying 5% of the vehicles are traveling at or above 34 miles an hour?
Correct.
Is this dramatically different than anywhere else in the city?
No, not particularly, not for local streets. Oh, maybe I stand corrected?
No, it's not. The difference is that most local streets aren't carrying volumes of 4,000 vehicles per day. So 5% of 4,000 is 200 vehicles. So most neighborhoods are not experiencing 200 vehicles exceeding that speed. So that's the difference.
Significance of this.
I was going to say that. Yes, this is where your percentages versus the actual numbers. That's why that's figures cited there. The 85th percentile speed of about 30 to 33. We took about 4 slices through the neighborhood of different speeds. Actually, the highest speeds, as you might guess, are actually in the western portion of the corridor where you've got more vehicles. And that's exactly why we highlighted the 5%. So on the east end of the corridor, 5% of 800 is 40 cars a day, but when you're down at the east end, that's 800 cars a day. So that's something where it's more significant. And then there's designated pedestrian crossings currently at 228th Avenue, at the Williams Pipeline, which is right in the middle of the photo. It's kind of a diagonal corridor, you can see. And then also at the east end of the corridor. And it's also a school bus route for McAuliffe and I believe other schools as well. So,
Nice.
trigger figure here. So this is the east end of the corridor. This is in the Summer Ridge neighborhood. It's a 36-foot pavement width, so this segues nicely with the last discussion. It's got curb, gutter, and sidewalk, but no planter strips.
Is that an airport landing strip type of look that you guys described to me?
Yes,
The ACN's too low for 4.7.
And this is the western side of the corridor. This is in the Plateau Estates neighborhood. There's no sidewalks. It's a 38-foot pavement width with paved shoulders. And at one point, stripes were added to designate the roadway width. So back in 2010, this neighborhood entered what we call Phase 1 of the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, or NTMP. And the components of that are to assess the situation, to get some data. Sometimes there's the perception versus reality. So some of the tools in the Phase 1 tool basket help discern that. So there's the Neighborhood Speed Watch program where they take radar readings of cars and jot down the license plate numbers, and then our police department will corroborate those results. Targeted enforcement, we've had our officers out on Northeast 25th. The upper photo shows a permanent radar speed sign that was installed. That's eastbound just before you get to the Williams Pipeline easement. The bottom photo shows the radar speed trailer that has been out on the corridor multiple times. And then we've made some signage improvements and pavement marking improvements. That's what is, those are other components of the Phase 1 part of the program where you're actually doing things that aren't exponentially expensive in terms of capital and readily easy to put in. And then we've also partnered with the HOA to add some traffic safety items into their monthly newsletters. So now the Phase 2 recommendations, I'll get into where we are in the process, but just kind of the highlight what type of tools are in the tool basket for the Phase 2, and these are more of our physical type of traffic calming features. At the intersection with 228th, we mentioned that there's 4,000 cars a day on that roadway. And currently, when you're headed towards the signal going westbound at 228th, there's only a single lane. So if you've got one car turning left, waiting for the traffic light, and you've got 8 cars behind them turning right to go up to Sahali, they all have to have wait. So we're proposing to squeeze in a right turn lane. And I say squeeze in because we're planning to use the existing pavement width, not doing any asphalt, just restriping. Also then stripe down the as the bottom photo, so these two photos here are both of Northeast 19th, where we did a very similar project a few years ago. And the bottom photo shows it's also a 36-foot pavement width, and actually this is the very similar section where in Laura's presentation she showed the 36-foot width and then the 20-foot width between the striping. So that's what we're talking about here when we say stripe a 20-foot travel lane. And then a landscape traffic circle, which is up at the top photo. That's one of the more common features we use. Question?
I just comment, I guess. There's something like this on Southeast 32nd. It doesn't work because...
Too small?
Too small, and you haven't bumped out the sidewalk corners. If you go to Southeast 30th, east of 244th, they have this design, but the sidewalks are bumped out, and it works because you can't go straight. Here you don't even have to slow down to go around it. So either you need to make the traffic circles larger, or ideally you bump out the corners of the sidewalk too, so people have to do a maneuver that will slow
Thank you
them
for
down.
those comments. We heard that in the previous experience in one location, so we'll do a better job on this one. So let's just take a look at it. Let's build this thing for the intended purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I
Slow
think-
down the people.
Yeah, you need to look at the design on these things.
Yeah.
I echo what Ben said. We definitely do appreciate those comments. One of the things that's challenging is, I mentioned this is a school bus route, not the photos, but this corridor, and so we have to be able to maintain the school buses getting through the corridor, and sometimes that, as a consequence of providing movement for the school buses, then it makes it so it's not overly restrictive for passenger vehicles.
You can do a raised
truck
apron there about 1.5 or 2 to allow the school buses and the moving trucks to get through that, right, Jeff? So that is available in your toolbox.
Like you've done at Sunny Hills.
Right.
Absolutely.
Good traffic engineering.
Absolutely.
They tell me my license is rusty and not working, so.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Some of the other items are raised planter islands, the sidewalk curb extensions, which is another feature shown in that bottom photo there. Sidewalk curb extensions at crosswalks, so it would be the similar as the bottom photo, but you've got a crosswalk there, so the benefit is you've shortened the crossing distance. And then also, again, some signage and striping improvements. So this is a copy of the paper that you have before you, and I know you can't read this. This just shows that whole corridor as a whole. And then I'll go through this and so that red box, I'm going to zoom in on that right now. So this is the west side of the corridor. 228th Avenue is right off the screen to the left, and then the eastern limit of this photo is 230th Avenue Northeast. And we've shown 2 of those in the green circles there, the neighborhood traffic circles. And what we've also shown, and I apologize if it's not very clear, but we're showing curbing, just exactly what Councilmember Witten pointed out, curbing at each of the sides of the traffic circle to prevent, because this is the segment where we don't have curb and gutter. So if we just put the traffic circle in, cars could just kind of make a chicane around that intersection. So by putting in the raised curb islands on the outside of the roadway, we're then creating a forced bottleneck. And this will be one of the areas where it's a challenge to provide that room. Potentially, we could use the raised truck apron to be able to accommodate the school bus traffic. So now we're looking at the more central segment, where the red box is. So this is in the vicinity of 231st Avenue Northeast and 233rd Place Northeast. And right in the center is the Williams pipeline easement. And there's an existing raised crosswalk there now. So the proposed improvements in this corridor are 2 more neighborhood traffic circles, as well as, now I mentioned there's a raised crosswalk at the Williams pipeline, but are also proposing to do a curb extension to narrow that crossing distance. And then finally, on the east end of the corridor, we're zoomed out a little bit more because there's a little more straightforward to see these improvements. A series of curb bulb extensions, plant and rain garden curb extensions. There's one right there where the mouth is circling, another one right here. And this is just like that photo a couple slides back on Northeast 19th, where we bring in the roadway from 36 feet to approximately 20 feet striped, and then there's a 1-foot shy distance. So the face of curb to face of curb is approximately 22 feet. And that serves to provide some side friction, as well as the benefit with the rain gardens, as we are able to provide a little bit of stormwater benefit for these older neighborhoods that don't currently have any. So here's where we're at in the process and our future schedule. We had an open house or public meeting at the elementary school in the neighborhood on last month, April 23rd. We had about 30 folks in attendance, and it was a good process, good constructive comments from them. So what's next it's prescribed, we have a prescribed process for the neighborhood traffic management program. And what happens next is we've taken the input, so what I've showed you tonight is revised from what we had at the public meeting. We added some more features on the west end of the corridor based on the feedback we heard. And then what we do is we then present that material to the homeowners association. This is pretty much a citizen-run program with city staff support. And so what's next is the neighbors and the HOA have to then petition themselves and go around and get a majority of the residents to express their support for these improvements. And that majority is set at 60%. And if you, the photo there before you, there's a bunch of parcels that are highlighted in blue. And that's the total amount of parcels that are subject to that 60%. It's basically any household that borders Northeast 25th Way or the cul-de-sacs that are directly adjacent to that. So if you have a cul-de-sac that has maybe 6 homes on it, and those were included in the total for the 60% requirement. So then simultaneously, we'll look forward to doing a little bit of design work, nothing too significant, but some just to keep our schedule going. And then what's next is we get the results from the homeowners association, and if they don't reach 60%, then the project dies, or else the HOA can kind of poll their neighborhood and find out, well, why didn't people like that, and possibly recommend some further modifications and go out again. But if they do achieve that 60% level, then it will come back to City Council, and we would present you with the results, whether it be 80% approval or 60.2%, have some discussion. And then if council is in favor of moving forward, then we would prepare and finalize the construction drawings and advertise the project for bids. And assuming everything goes smoothly, then we could be doing that as soon as August and September. And our preliminary estimate for the work is approximately $300,000. And where that would come from in the current budget is we have $100,000 in the line item for neighborhood projects, and then we have $200,000 under the intersection improvements. So we'd pull from both of those budgetary areas. And I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Nancy?
Refresh my memory. I thought the neighborhoods were participated or in the cost.
Not in the neighborhood traffic management program. We have a neighborhood LID, so if they wanted to propose most common, we've not had one happen, but there's a line item in the budget to support a neighborhood that wanted to come forward and add sidewalks, say, or some other amenity that is outside of our current schedule. So there's definitely a shortage of sidewalks in the city compared to our budget and also our ability to construct them. So that tool is available for a neighborhood that, let's say, isn't high on the priority list for sidewalks, but wants to initiate things themselves. The city would match some money to help them provide that.
Thank you.
Jeff, would you put your first slide back up, please? What were the traffic numbers in it?
Wants to get attention to.
Who it is?
Curly.
Okay.
So this first number is 4,000. The next number is 3,600 or 3,580. Then in the middle of the quarter is 2,700. Then it's 1,600, 1,660, and then all the way at the east end, it's down to 800.
So this is a classic case where a single, what are we going to call it? Collector arterial, is that what this really is?
Well, the western end functions like a collector, and the eastern end is definitely a local street. So it's kind of a hybrid, but it's classified as a local.
Okay, so this is serving a large number of houses in this one area. It's another example of what we looked at with Windsor Green almost, where several neighborhoods rely on one street to get out.
Correct. As a result of all the cul-de-sacs, there's not much connectivity, so everybody's funneled, either come to Northeast 25th or Northeast 19th are the only ways out of this part of the city.
So a couple of comments, a couple of questions, and a couple of thoughts. Do we know where the speeding's occurring in all this? Is it all over the place?
It's all over the place. When we did this, each one of those little Balloons for the volume is also a location where we took speed surveys. So we have 5 locations across the corridor where we have the average speeds. And it's fairly consistent.
Okay. Now, as I look at the map that was handed out, the hard copy, it looks like the far east end of it is a vacant lot. Is that in fact true?
Could be a park.
Might be a part. I think it's a neighborhood. It's all developed, so
Actually,
there's no
it's a
vacant property within the corridor.
Camouflage.
It's a wetland, I believe.
Well, my point is this is a solution a problem that's begging multiple solutions. We're talking about one of these. Another solution would be to unload the west end of it by doing what we talked about previously in our barricade effort, is to extend streets through that really need to go through. The east end of this whole operation has no choice but to go west. But if they could go east to 244th, they could actually get to Redmond quicker than going this way.
I don't know the topography. I'm not very familiar with this area.
Northeast 22nd actually does connect, but it's a private street.
It does, it does connect, but no one's supposed to use it. The other thing is, what I'm wondering is if that is a vacant piece of property there, if that couldn't become part of a right-of-way extension of Northeast 25th all the way up to 244th rather. This would unload the western end of it. Yes, we still have to do some things, but I'm not sure we have to do as much.
Can I make a
Nancy?
Along those lines, 248th was a big pain for everybody in the neighborhood and us. It was a private road with what we called a CRID covenant, a road improvement covenant on it, put in by the county. When they authorized the short plat, as a condition of the short plat, they permitted it to be a private road, but had a covenant saying that if and when the county, or in this case its successor, the city, wanted to make it public, they had to donate it to the city and that they wouldn't object. So I imagine they did that with almost all these short plats. I imagine that you would find, if you researched that there would be indeed a CRID covenant on that private road, if it's in part of a short plat or a development, and that the city should be looking into that, so we know what our options are.
Show us this location on this larger map so we can get it.
If it's not part of a short plat, then it wouldn't have.
No, I believe that the short segment of Northeast 22nd well predates the city. It's I don't even think it's developed, just old lots, and it's right in this area here. This is east of McAuliffe Elementary School.
That runs right past McAuliffe.
Right. Yeah, McAuliffe is right about, here's McAuliffe. So this short segment here is private.
Well, but we'll look and see if you have CRID covenants on it.
But then if you go up to Northeast 25th, or...
Yeah, I believe that topography-wise, or wetland-wise, that it's not feasible. Laura, I think, knows more about
There's
that.
a lot of wetlands in there and a lot of steep slopes, so it's not an
There
easy
is.
build.
We've actually looked at this area. We agree with you about looking for an east-west connection. And one of the areas that we believe might work in the future is Northeast 14th Street. And Ben's been very helpful. We've been working with the developers of Mystic Lake to try to make sure their development doesn't preclude or encourages that connection in the future. But you can see there's a...
Huge.
Right here. Sorry. You can see the critical areas coming through right in here.
Yeah.
It's a ravine. This
Yeah,
is the top of a ravine.
So maybe a bridge would be
So
appropriate.
it's a bridge.
Yeah.
Northeast 22nd is not a bridge. You can walk across that.
Correct. But you were talking about up at 25th. This is
I was talking about 25th or 27th or anything like that, but...
making that northern connection would be very difficult.
Like the Ardennes Forest to me.
But this shows Northeast 22nd going through.
There's a barricade there.
Yeah, that's, yeah. There's a private section and a public section, and with a barricade.
Google doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually possible.
But I'd love to see the records examined for the CRID covenant.
We absolutely could do that.
Because to me, taking Northeast 22nd through, while it won't do as much as taking 25th through, would give those people another option for getting out. And the fact that there is already a dirt road there tells me that wouldn't be, as hard as some other options might be. Mr. Curley?
Two quick questions for you. Did you get any pushback from any of the 38 people that were at the meeting?
No, the predominant comments we heard was that we didn't do enough on the west end of the corridor.
Okay.
So we beefed that up, added more, the traffic circles weren't in the original meeting diagram.
And I also assume that once you spend $300,000 on this thing, you go back out and test it, right?
Correct, and we're
What's
actually doing that.
$300,000 get you 2 miles reduced, 3 miles an hour reduced? What's the reduction on this? What would you be happy with? What's a success?
I would expect 4 to 5 at the most.
You want to knock 4 or 5 off the 34?
And we're actually we've in the process of collecting those results on Northeast 19th. We want to get the counts at the same time of year to those seasonal variations. So we want to collect those. Also on Northeast 14th, we made some similar improvements. So we're in the process of getting that data and reviewing it now.
And that's just about what you get? You get about 4 or 5 miles an hour on these sort of things?
At the high end.
Yeah.
But
I would agree with 4 to 5 miles an hour, but in addition, we reduced that top speed.
Right.
So the top speed, we don't get the outliers, the 50. We'll do this data, and we might find 1 or 2 cars in there that are going 50, 45 or 50.
Right.
We always joke that could be one of our cops responding to an emergency, but we do see a reduction on that top end.
Right, the middle
So
part.
4 or 5 on the 85th percentile, and then a reduction.
I got you, okay.
Want to go through?
Seems fair.
Yeah.
And at the traffic circles themselves, you get a huge reduction.
Correct.
I assume you can't
Correct.
go through that faster than 15 or something.
It's pretty challenging.
They're built like Southeast 32nd.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, you're following the City Council ordinance on the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, so this is the report that we're giving to the council, and 60% petition is not only the people that are just abutting the street, so that you're looking for the whole neighborhood there for 60% petition, is that correct?
Well, the abutting street and the adjacent cul-de-sacs.
Adjacent cul-de-sacs. Once we get that, then you will come back here to share us with the final design
Correct.
and then go
So
to it.
it has to have a two yes, we have to have a neighborhood yes and then a council yes for this project to proceed.
Proceed with it. What I'm hearing is that the council is also interested in addition to this, to maybe some connectivity issues. I'm not hearing that the council wants you to hold this process because the neighborhood has an expectation this project to move forward. So this is discussion of that is in addition to this neighborhood traffic control implementation that we pursue that the additional connectivity issues.
Ben, what I am wondering about, though, is in view of the lopsidedness of the traffic volumes, heavily western-oriented, if maybe we ought to segment this project into 2 and do the west end and evaluate, because it seems to me the problems are primarily west end oriented rather than doing the whole street. We could do the west end, evaluate, and then look at doing the east end, perhaps concurrent with a extension of something over to 244th.
The problem or challenge, Mr. Mayor, with that approach is that extension could be years. It could take a long time. What is the neighborhood's expectations? I mean, we need to be sensitive to.
Well, that's just it. They've been involved in this program since 2010, and it would be kind of changing the process on them potentially.
I would also add that the most active members working with us are the ones who live on the east end, and they're the ones who've checked out the radar guns, done all the neighborhood speed watch program. So essentially, they've done all the legwork, all the hard work, and then the city would come in and fix the west end and leave them with no improvements. You might get some pushback from that homeowners association.
Councilmember Vance?
You know, I've spoken to a lot of folks on this street. I live on the other end of 25th Way and going west.
I walked this whole area, too.
You know, I did, and this is a hot topic there, and back in 2009, I was hearing it from every other house, do something about the traffic, and that was from one end to the other. I think it's kind of penny wise and pound foolish not just to do the whole thing and as one coordinated project, and let's see what it looks like. It's $300,000, and I think, I don't know how many, I haven't counted the houses, but If it works, and if it works just a few miles per hour, all these people are going to feel a lot safer. And be a lot safer.
Nancy?
I think it should be the whole roadway, and I would also ask concurrently that staff look at their work schedule and tell us, come back and tell us when you might be looking into the connections at maybe Southeast 22nd and Southeast 20th, too, looks like it.
20th is not really there. I think that's an error on the map.
We'll take a look at it. We'll pursue those options.
Thank you.
Good?
And then,
Good, we got it? What
yeah,
else
I
we
just want to
need?
add one little factoid on this. Northeast 25th Street is also a candidate for our pavement overlay project. I don't know if you've been out there and seen the condition of the roadway, but we're hoping that we want to get these improvements done before
Well,
we would overlay the road.
Let's not overlay it until we figure out what we're doing with this.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so we got direction, thank you, so appreciate it. Let's proceed with it.
Okay, 244th.
Man, we're moving along, hopefully. This is the one that we're coming back to you with some design update. It is a capital project. It's in front of the Beaver Lake Park as a refresher for the council between northeast or southeast 32nd and the southeast 24th. And tell us what's going on.
All right, so during the budget process, the city council identified 244th Avenue Southeast adjacent to Beaver Lake Park between Southeast 24th Street and Southeast 32nd Street as a high priority for the non-motorized fund. So we've been plugging along. We talked to the council back in March. We approved a design consultant contract, and we also talked about the scope. And what we heard from the council was sidewalks on the east side adjacent to the park, bike lanes on both sides of the roadway, and then one lane of traffic in both way with a rain garden or bioswale type landscape strip between the sidewalk and the curb. We just want to highlight designs.
Can you go back to just 1 second? I'm sorry.
This is the one that the council approved at the time that we shared with the council?
Yeah, I'm just trying to locate which side of the street, which is east and which is west.
So where the people are standing would be next to the park. If
Okay,
you're
thank you.
walking north and south. you'd be
Sidewalk
next to
on the park side.
Good.
So just highlight a couple of things. Our design's moving right along. Think the project's going great. We're at 60% design. Actually, we're past 60% design. There's a couple of things that have come up of consideration, and one is at Northeast 24th Street or Southeast 24th Street and Southeast 32nd Street that we hadn't considered at the time we briefed the council previously, and that is those two intersections are going to need. At some point in the future, they will need some traffic control devices, either a signal or a roundabout. And so what we've looked at is how could we, what could we do now to put those expenses out into the future? And by adding right turn pockets at both intersection, you're looking at gaining probably 5 to 10 years before those traffic control devices would be warranted.
So you mean that you don't want to do this in typical municipal job, do the project, and come back 3 years later, cut the brand-new asphalt and the sidewalks, and put the signal configuration? Is that
I really wanted to, but you told me no. So, no, we don't want to. We want to look at what are the needs over the next 5 to 10 years. But we also, we can't put in a traffic signal that's not warranted. So
Right.
what we talked about is anywhere where we're cutting the roadway is to put in conduit in case that we come back in the future. On-street parking, there's a high need. We heard it at the public meetings. We heard it from the Parks Department. I think the Parks Department heard it during their public meetings for the master plan for Beaver Lake Park of, you really need parking. So how can we maximize parking along back-end angled parking? Also, just to let you know that we're working with Williams Pipeline. There's an easement there. Any work we do that touches that, we have to get permits. We're working hard on that. Taking care of water quality and flow control with stormwater. It's always a challenge. It's an ever-moving target. And then just to highlight that we are working with the impacted neighbors because there's a significant amount of trees that will be removed as part of the sidewalk construction. So the intersections currently, both 32nd and 24th are two-way stop control. Again, 2018, under current conditions, we're showing a level of service F, which is unacceptable in our comprehensive plan, and putting in the right turn lanes buys us that additional time. Back in angle parking is what we're proposing. You gain a lot more spaces than what you would gain with with parallel parking along a roadway, significant more. And front end angle parking actually is very dangerous. If you have bicyclists or like you talked about children running out, it's very hard to back out of the stall and see, especially if an SUV parks next to you and you're in a sedan, backing into traffic. Backing into the parking stall is significantly safer. So we're proposing the back end angle parking.
One request.
Yes.
Make these standard size stalls, not compact. Because when you have a parking lot next to a ball field like
They're
this.
all SUVs, Suburban, Suburban, Expedition,
John's
Suburban.
SUV's always there.
Lexus
My
SUV.
Escalade.
Don't bring the team in a compact.
I got two Hummers, one on top of the other.
So we're moving forward. Constructions, we're planning to bring back to the council in July and begin construction in August. I want to highlight that those right turn pockets at the intersections do potentially have a cost implication. We're not asking the council to add money to the budget at this particular time because we're hoping, that bids continue to be favorable and we can squeeze that into our existing budget. But we wanted to forewarn the council that there could potentially be a budget impact where we may need to request use of some of the fund contingency in order to do those expansions at those intersections. Well, pay now or pay later, right? So
the good news, design is proceeding, the very minimal surprises that we're experiencing it. We hope that we will take advantage of the low or favorable bidding environments. We don't need the budget adjustments. All we need is that perhaps project cost adjustments, and then we have a contingency fund and transportation fund that is plenty enough to offset any potential increases on the bidding process. That's the update.
that's the update, and now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff again. See that, it gets shorter each presentation.
6-year transportation plan. Jeff, give us an update, if you could, please. Why do we need to do this?
Well, we're coming to you, annually, actually, we're trying to be a little proactive here. Annually, we're required by state law to update, then the TIP is a Transportation Improvement Program. It's a planning document that is required to be updated by municipalities every year and has to be filed with the Secretary of Transportation by June 30th. Let me get this going here. And the reason we're coming to you tonight is that as part of our regular monitoring of the traffic model, we saw some results that we didn't necessarily predict, or actually we saw results come up sooner than we had predicted. And so that's why we wanted, in advance of the public hearing for the TIP, we wanted to just highlight that and just bring it to your attention so you could think about it. So the schedule for the Sahalee Way Northeast project, and I've got some exhibits where that is. It's an existing project, but the timing is needing to be changing, and that's caused by the traffic model, and our counts are showing an increasing trend of traffic along Sahalee Way. So traffic diverting from the Parkway to Sahalee Way, most likely due to the change in growth patterns. There's Snoqualmie Casino, there's toll on 520. The SR 202 improvements have been constructed now for several years, so all those are contributing to these trends that we're seeing. So we monitor 2 concurrency segments along Sahalee Way. They're highlighted up there in the blue, and the first one is from Northeast 25th Way that I was just speaking with, up to 220th, which is just before you get to Sahalee, and then the next one is from there up to the northern city limits. And so this project that's highlighted in yellow, that's been on our TIP for the last two updates, but the construction has been beyond the planning horizon, so it's been beyond year 6. And what we're recommending, and I'm sorry the font colors aren't coming through very well, but what we're recommending is that we need to have this project up and running before the end of the 6-year TIP planning horizon. And so what we're going to recommend and be coming to you in June is that we begin preliminary design in 2015, and final design in 2016, and then begin construction in the year 2017.
When we actually bring the resolution, we will make, in advance of the council meeting, 11 by 17 version of this included in your council packet.
Yes.
So that you can actually read those things, so.
And this is it's a draft document, and we've not got the updated forecast from finance yet. So when we come to you in June, it'll have, down at the bottom of the page, which is not shown here today, has our estimated REIT income and traffic impact fee income and things like that. Is there a question?
Yeah.
Mr. Vance?
One of the other issues we have along that road is potential revisions of some stormwater. Detention, whatever they are. Where is that, and would that be coordinated with this as well?
This is the one that the county built under the roadways?
Yeah, the ones that we...
Inherited.
We have inherited, I presume? I think we have.
Well, it's on the county council schedule to be, what day is that? So it's pretty close, I think.
It's really close. I don't remember the exact date. I don't want to.
It's in the county council that the executive's office finally forwarded.
Would seem to me that it would make sense to coordinate the...
Yeah, that particular one, the Councilmember Vance, would not require capital improvement, but rather is the maintenance that has been lacking there. So actually, we did send the crew out there to check to make sure, even if it is not transferred yet, but we're encouraging county to accelerate that transfer so we can do that.
We would have more impervious surface, though, on that road, so, yeah, okay.
But we would take that into consideration when we scope the project. We'd be very careful and very sensitive of the previous slide and the stormwater issues out there today. But we will not wait for this project to maintain the property.
Right.
So.
It's 220.
Jeff, where exactly is 220th again?
It's where the sidewalk ends on 220, I mean, the Sahali Way.
No, Northeast 20th, I'm sorry, did you say 220th?
220th, yes.
So it's kind of just south of that, and I apologize, I don't know but that southern entrance to Sahali Way.
So it's the main road?
No, to Sahali, there's the main entrance, the main gate, and then as
Yeah.
you go further down south, there's another gate right there.
The east gate?
Yes, and then so 220th Avenue it's what's in our planning documents. The comprehensive plan calls this 220th. There's not an actual intersection of 220th and Sahali Way that I'm aware of. It's a street that's just off of it, and so historically, to keep consistent, we're calling it 220th, but it's basically halfway between the east gate and then the entrance to the Crest neighborhood, right about where that new pump station is for this water district.
Okay, what happens when we get to the city limits?
Then we just stop. That's, it's
the county and DOT, Department of Transportation and county rights away there.
Okay, Mr. Valderrama?
Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out what that third lane's going to do if it stops at the county limits.
Well, what we would do is we would take the 3-lane section up to the Northeast 37th intersection and then just taper back to our existing roadway section. We wouldn't take the 3 lanes all the way up to the city limit.
Well, I understand that, but what's the efficiency that we're going to gain? How much are we going to gain on efficiencies on that road? I assume that third lane is to help the traffic flow going in directions.
Well, so there's 2 goals of the comprehensive plan. One is to address traffic congestion, which is our level of service on our intersections, and 2 is to address safety and non-motorized amenities, and that's what the corridor level of service goal is, and that's why we look at it all-day ADT. Jeff's right that we probably would be looking at different ways to taper, but the actual design and the needs of the project, we haven't sat down and scoped it out. We just know our comprehensive plan policies say when you hit a certain threshold of volume, a project needs to be done. And so we need to get it on the 6-year TIP so that we don't stop development.
I think, if I understand your question, Councilmember Valderrama, we will make every effort to coordinate with the King County and DOT to carry that improvement all the way to the intersection.
Well, that's part of it, because I know WSDOT's done it at the Gray Barn and the way that they've expanded it, and then King County, of course, it has financial difficulties, so there's nothing on the horizon to help us here for quite a while. The other part of it is to make sure that if we're going to be putting in, that these be real services to the traffic and not, we had the same thing on East Lake Sammamish Parkway because of how we talk about concurrency and capacity and its bike lanes and stuff, but to see if we can actually help the traffic that's congested there on Sahali. And that then goes back to your issue at King County as well.
Well, the first step is to put in a 6-year TIP transportation plan so that we can actually start those discussions and then also the funding opportunities. And we're required by our concurrency ordinance to do that. So what staff is telling us, although this project was in the outer years, we need to move it forward and advance it, so we don't want you to be surprised. So that's one reason why we're having the study session. Second one is that the East Lake Sammamish Parkway project was going to be eliminated from the list. Planning Commission is working on that one. That has not been finalized yet. So we anticipate that by September, the council will make a decision on that one. October, we probably have to make October, November timeline, that another amendment to that, as soon as we get the Planning Commission recommendation and clean that up too. But that's not ready to make that action right now. We need to do this thing. Staff is telling me by state law, we have to get this plan updated by July 1st.
Ben, to make this really efficient, we do need to take this project all the way to Northeast 50th, which is the street down by the Gray Barn, the cross street down by the Gray Barn.
Oh, yeah, I agree, Mr. Mayor, that we need to coordinate with DOT and the King County to carry that all the way down there. But, and Councilmember Valderrama alluded that not every jurisdiction is financially as in a great shape as we are. They're struggling with it.
Would there be any possibility if we approached the county for them ceding the right-of-way to us down to that point, even though it's outside the urban growth boundary?
Good question, we'll ask. Good question. They still...
Because they're taking roads to gravel, gets it off their back.
Yeah, it still is the rural, right? That is not a UGA that...
It's outside the urban growth boundary.
And it was one of the reasons they do that. They just designate it as the rural so that the no improvements can be done. Now, this is a philosophical discussion, Mr. Mayor.
It goes into our growth target.
Yeah, but we'll check.
Okay.
Get back to you. Any other significant changes on the 6-year transportation plan coming before council?
Nope, those are it. I'm glad you brought up the East Lake Sammamish Parkway. We just wanted to highlight that because we're aware of council's desires, but process-wise, we can't pull it off the tip
We're waiting for
yet.
the planning commission to make the recommendation.
Thank you.
Planning Commission looking at Snake Hill.
No. Not as our current level of service. It's a very narrowly scoped process that we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another day of discussion for us to have on Snake Hill.
Because that's another road that needs attention one of these days.
Can you?
Yeah.
Nancy?
Can you, I saw you mentioned in there Issaquah Pine Lake Road, but there's nothing there for the next 6 years. Is that correct? Can you give us an update on that item?
Issaquah Pine Lake Road is, in the current 2013 TIP, it's scheduled for design in year 5, which is 2017, I believe, and we're maintaining that, so it's moving to year 4. So in the past couple TIPs, it stayed in the outer years, and we're proposing to slide it now.
There's also possibility a private development might build a significant portion of that prior to the scheduled date.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jern?
I think the schedule on that should dovetail with the decision between Issaquah, Sammamish, and Klahani as to who's going to end up with Klahani in their city.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree. They should pay for their share.
If Issaquah gets it, they pay for it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Jeff.
much.
Thank you, Laura. Good work. Council, that completes the staff reports.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Going to ask very briefly if there are council reports tonight. Mr. Vance?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, Mr. Jern.
Just that the Association of Washington Cities is sponsoring a mayor's exchange in Seattle tomorrow. There are about 40 mayors scheduled to be there. I'll be presiding over it, and our mayor is going to be there for part
Are
of
we
it.
exchanging the mayor? Our mayor going somewhere else?
We're
Hey, you're
trying-
getting a better candidate.
Double the mileage.
We haven't had any offers yet.
That and your future draft choice.
That's it.
Nancy?
And nothing to report. Oh, wait, we had an Economic Development Committee meeting. I assume Vance is going to report on that.
Well, we just had it, and we had a continuation of the plan, a description of where we are, and we actually added a meeting, so we have another meeting in July. We are getting to the point where we may be starting a discussion of actual strategies, which should be an interesting turn.
I think it's safe to say that the consultant is cranking quite
Moving quickly.
quite well on this thing. He's conducted, they have conducted a number of interviews of the council, and they're going to be talking to the chamber. They're also have been digging into the details of demographics of this community in terms of census data and major employer connections and who's going where within the Seattle metro area in terms of work destinations.
I think it'd be interesting to have some of that data on the website as well.
Can we also have either a brief report on the visioning, or maybe put the visioning statement that's in draft form onto the website?
It's a pretty rough draft right now.
I think I'd wait till we smooth it out a bit more.
I don't think it's ready for prime time.
No.
I agree.
But at least share it amongst ourselves.
Yeah, we can, well, we did that today.
Draft
but,
on it.
yeah.
But maybe staff could provide that to at least the council?
I think that'd be appropriate, yeah. So where we came out of today's meeting with it, clean that up and send it out to people.
All the handouts that was given today at the committee meeting will be given to all council members.
Thank you.
Okay. John?
There was an East Side Transportation Partnership meeting last Friday. I think we're going to end up paving more miles of roadway in Sammamish than the entire rural county. It's amazing. So stay tuned for more bad news. And then Friday is the last day if you were thinking of filing for a city council position to contact King County Elections. That's my public service announcement.
Okay. John Curley.
I didn't see that this was on the agenda, so I don't have my, oh, sorry.
You're on air.
Oh, yeah, hello, yeah. Actually, I am on right now.
Watch what you say.
Check traffic and weather on the 7s. I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Nothing to report.
Okay, the one thing I have is the AWC Association of Washington Cities meeting is coming up in late June. What are the dates, Don?
27th, I think, 25th.
About 25th to 27th.
25th to 27th. Just like to get a show of hands, what part of the council is thinking about going or going. So I've got three of us.
I may join in. It's about the party animals that are going.
Okay, it might be four of us. I've got a request from Deanne Hartman, who is the meeting planner for this, for somebody from Sammamish to volunteer to carry our flag at the opening ceremony.
I think I'd recommend Mayor to be the one that carrying that flag.
Yeah, I think the
No,
mayor.
I think
He's got the decorum and presence.
I think Don should carry it as in view of his looming emeritus status as the president.
I carried it last year. I think it needs to rotate. So.
Yeah, I think it's the mayor's turn.
Well, if Ramiro shows, it's his turn.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have.
I'm used to planting.
Okay.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, with that, I'm going to declare us adjourned. We are adjourned. Thank you.